Hello. Hello, everyone. Our cursor is currently gone.
Hello.
I don't know why.
Monroe.
One second. Oh. Cursor's back.
It's
working. It's cool. It's working. Let's make sure we're not dropping frames. All right, hello, everyone. We're Tier Listing Presidents.
Woo! Don't sound too excited about it.
With Dan. I'm tired.
Really?
Well, we're doing this.
You're tired?
I drove for 6.5 hours.
You did. Probably is more than that.
7.
Yeah, it was probably close to like 7.5.
Oh, we're in D.C. for the weekend.
In the nation's capital for the next day and a half or so. So,
for barely the next day.
Yeah. So we are going to be doing this as a celebration of our presidents, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd say
while we were walking through, we spent an awful lot of time walking through the nation's capital today, visiting various different memorials and monuments, all this other stuff. We didn't get a chance to do any of the library stuff. It was really just drive by, or I guess walking by.
Yeah. So we're going to be hitting all the museums and stuff tomorrow.
Yeah, we walked about 11 miles today visiting all this various stuff. And it was raining, of course. There was a brief point in between the two rains, though, where it was really nice.
Yeah, it was either raining or, other than a small, nice bit, or incredibly humid.
Right. But be that as it may, although we didn't learn a whole hell of a lot during... I think we still learned a little bit. We learned that World War I memorial was commissioned by Herbert Hoover, I believe.
I think so. I don't know.
That sounds about right.
Since we're in the capital, we thought it'd be apt that because I'm not missing a stream week.
Barely not missing that.
I'm not missing this Friday stuff that we tier lists. We do our tier lists because it's simple. Of the presidents.
And we're going to try to make this quick just for the sake of not only our own sanity, but also because of the time that it is. We'd like to get to sleep as soon as we can so that we're well rested for tomorrow's festivities. Also, there's going to be a number of admittedly, this is kind of like a hacky list.
We're going to establish some base rules going to this immediately. First, we're not doing any presidents from Bush Jr. onwards.
Yeah, anything from this current millennium.
Too recent, too political. We don't like talking about politics too much, so we're going to do more the older things that are a little bit more historical. Yeah, that's a little more objective. We could probably do.
Yeah, we feel like a president's true worth isn't really able to be measured until long after they've left office, because it really seems like their impact can't be properly measured or observed often within their lifetimes.
So even some of the last presidents that we're going to end up tiering will also be stuff that it's like the tail end of really being able to feel some of the repercussions for the decisions they've ended up making,
right?
Or lack of making.
There are definitely some presidents from recent memory whose effects can be measured. However, at the risk of us going back and forth getting too political on Twitch, which I think might be against TOS anyway.
Who knows?
I don't know.
We like to do completely objective tier lists here, okay? So we're going to try our best to make sure the good presidents that have done pretty good things are at the tops of the list, and the presidents who have probably not done the greatest of things are on the bottom of the list. And then underneath the bottom, if I'm not mistaken here, we got the we don't know.
Yeah, there are a handful of presidents that neither Rob or I have really any knowledge or significant enough knowledge to be able to say anything about them.
Perhaps after more research and understanding of some of these guys, we could do a revisit on the don't know people.
Right.
And actually put them in a tier. But for today, this is how it's going down. And we will be doing them in order, kind of. First, we're going to start by putting all the new guys in the too recent tier.
Oh, we're gonna do that right now?
Yeah, we're going to do them first.
Okay. Well,
Dan's going to be in charge of
All right.
this computer.
As per usual, our setup is very bootleg.
Very, very.
So I am working with a trackpad right now, or one of those mouse pads, right? So all of our current Millennium presidents, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joseph Biden, we're not going to tier. Just flat out. So, to reason, we don't want to get too political about it.
Yeah,
I do have my opinions on where some of these guys should go, but I'm not going to get into that.
Me and Dan both have kind of similar political ideas.
Yeah, I'm a bit, just to like clear the air, I believe you're a bit more of a centrist than I am, but I'm very far left. But I promise that's not going to color my perception of some of these guys.
Yeah, we are going to be looking at most of these, at least the older presidents for sure, in a more historical contest for guys that we actually know what they've done.
Right.
And we also have to try to not be loud.
Because we are in a hotel.
We're in a hotel, and these probably have paper-thin walls, and it is almost midnight.
And we have neighbors, and there's probably a noise ordinance in the first place.
Yeah, probably.
So if it sounds like we're not putting our all into it, that's why. It's not because we're super tired or we're not interested in this topic. We are.
This is why we chose to do this.
Yep.
We have a list of things to tier list, and I'm sure this was probably one of them.
I think so. Maybe at some point we can always revisit these later.
Yeah.
If we decide to change our minds significantly enough.
The only thing that the only tier list that we've done probably so far that we will not be revisiting is the gym leaders tier list.
Not because our minds are going to change terribly. Because it's perfect. The way
it's literally perfect,
it's
and
absolutely perfect.
It would be incredibly long to do it again.
What? Come on, you mean it was only like 7 hours?
Yeah, that was only like the entire time it took for us to drive here.
That got heated though, at certain points.
And speaking of heating, we might as well because we have to turn the AC off.
Yeah, so because we turned the AC off so that you guys didn't have to listen to it. We're gonna start right in with George Washington. What are you thinking, Rob?
The big man himself,
the man whose monument has been looming over us the entire day. The obelisk.
For anyone who has not been to Washington D.C. and or doesn't know of the area, President Washington has a monument that is just a giant obelisk. What if you don't know is an Egyptian thing.
Yeah, I don't know why they chose.
We don't know why. It's a giant pillar, but on the top it's a pyramid, like top, like a spear kind of thing. It is incredibly massive. You see the thing from almost anywhere in the city.
Yeah, I've seen it in pictures, but it doesn't do it justice in pictures. You have to see it in person to really understand the scale of it.
I was telling Dan earlier because we were going to the Lincoln Monument. A lot of these monuments, I guess, just in general, that you may see online, you may not get a good scale because most of them are taken as the only thing in the picture. These buildings are massive.
Yeah, they are.
These buildings that they've made to commemorate these people are incredibly big.
It's really kind of sick, almost, how much we kind of deify our presidents. We don't do that for anybody else. Like, it's very rare. They have to be like a major like social progress leader, like MLK or something like that, in order for them to get. Which, by the way, went to the MLK memorial.
The Martin Luther King
That
Jr. memorial
gorgeous.
was also incredible.
That was amazing.
It was great.
That was probably my favorite one.
The statue of him was engraved in rock.
Oh yeah,
Is beautiful. The amount of detail is insane.
Oh yeah. But we're not talking about that.
I'm sure there will be DC talk while we're doing this as well.
We'll go back and forth.
You know,
It's been an amazing trip, even though it's only been less than a day we've been here.
we've literally have walked around for probably about 6 hours or so.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Maybe like 5. Trying to get food was a problem.
Yeah, that was difficult. But hey,
we're here now, and we've
got
eaten.
it. Oh, so George Washington.
George Washington's in. We said dance with George Washington.
I slipped in as. Do you have objection to that?
See, I don't know much about what George Washington's actually done with policies for things, but he's the first president.
He's the first president. And he set groundwork for a lot of different things. It's because of him that precedents that were set, such as like. The two-term rule. That was never just...
The two-term rule, which wasn't relevant until FDR, which we'll get to.
Correct, yeah.
Wasn't...
The only reason that
law.
presidents up to that point weren't serving more than 2 terms was because of Washington. Washington said that he didn't believe that politicians, I think it was just politicians in general, it wasn't just presidents, should serve more than 2 terms.
See, I think the thing that happened with, and I could be wrong, correct me if I am.
If I know you are, I will.
Washington wasn't, he didn't volunteer or like go for it. He was kind of given this position. He was dictated as being the best one of the boys.
And I do believe that Washington's election was the only one in American history that was 100% unanimous across every state in the country at the time. Like, yes, we want Washington. I don't even think there was another person to vote against. It was just, Washington, put him in.
It's the only. He's a candidate for both parties, if there were even parties yet.
There really weren't. It was like Whigs, and there was, I don't even know if Democratic Republicans were a thing yet. It was just like Whigs, Federalists. There were more than 2 parties. Though.
Yeah.
It was not the strict, rigid 2-party system that we've been entrenched in now.
Yay.
Yeah.
But
he was unaffiliated. Washington was an unaffiliated. He didn't have a party.
Washington's going to start off strong. I do know that he was outside of the presidency, if I am correct in my historical accurateness. He was actually a really good general.
Oh yes, one of the best.
So
he's one of the big reasons. Him and General Putnam were like the reasons that we won that war. On our side, the real reason we won the war was because of the French intervention. Come on.
Yeah, the French helped in the American
French
Revolution.
Are like the reason that we are a country right now.
They did help, and in return, we gave them electric poles or something like that for their.
What?
I've heard that they helped, and we gave them Ben Franklin or whatever put on. They created lightning rods for the buildings because Paris. I don't know if it's Paris or France in general, suffers from thunderstorms a lot.
Oh, wow.
So the lightning rods help, not destroy buildings.
Oh, be that as it may. I know it might make me a bad American or whatever to say good of the French, but truth is truth, facts are facts.
During that time,
help, we would not be a country.
During that time, France was very influential with helping to deter anything British.
Anything British. Well, I mean,
and we were
common enemy,
and we were anti-British at the time.
France and Britain have been like this, like for hundreds of years, so it made sense.
So yeah, I think Washington's going to be the S tier. He's going to be our first boy.
Oh yeah, he's probably going to be the only one there for a little bit.
Yeah, we're probably going to hit a drought of S tiers, but we may hit some A's. But there's probably going to be a lot of don't knows and or bads, if I had to guess.
They're coming. They're coming.
Also, these presidents, I don't know if I mentioned, they are in numerical order.
Yes, they're in order of office. Some of them use their more well-known portraits. Some of them don't, which is kind of odd to me, but.
We will, and there will be one president later on that we will do and then have to come back to immediately after.
Oh, you think? Oh, right. Never mind. I know what you're talking about. But yeah, there is a tier down here for we don't know enough about them to judge. I'm just going to be honest. Neither of us are historians or scholars.
I do like history. I do like American history. I do not know presidential history.
I know a tad bit more about presidential history, it seems, but I'm by no means an expert. So this is 2 laymen's opinions on...
This will probably be very similar to lists of presidents that you probably could find online. However, this one is ours.
Yes.
And we will be coming up with our own reasons on why these people deserve these spots.
Right. Objective.
And we are going to tier them within the tiers, right? Because we do that. Mm-hmm. For the ones that we don't know, it may come down to physical appearance.
This was not on the registrar of it. Okay, you know what? Fine, I'll agree to that.
Hey, there was one. The one of them we did because the chin or something. I think
the chin.
The jawline.
Oh, what was this?
See, we did that right. That was for one of them. The jawline was strong.
I don't remember which list it was. I remember that rationale, but I don't remember what list it was. Yes, this guy's a stronger jawline. Oh, well, anyway.
Say some of these guys with some good mutton chops might be higher on the unknown list.
Facial hair is going to be a deciding factor on a lot of these, I bet.
All right, number 2.
So John Adams. James Adams. What am I doing? Yeah, John Adams.
We definitely don't have a list of them.
Well, I didn't pull up the list.
No. So I'm saying we definitely do not have a list of the president names.
Oh,
we know Dan knows all of them by heart.
Yeah. So the first, the first president that I do believe has a party affiliation.
Oh, we do have a list. We're pulling statistics.
Yeah, so this is I think our first and only, if I'm not mistaken, Federalist president, John Adams. He was our second president, served right after, and he only served one term. Truth be told, and this again probably makes me a bad American, but I don't actually know all that much about John Adams. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and if there are historians watching that are just going to jump down my throat about it, I'm fine with that. I believe this was the guy that was known for being really angry and like challenging people who disagreed with him to gunfight duels. And I think for that alone, he deserves at least C.
You think he deserves at least C?
Probably B, just for the manliness it takes.
We'll put him in C for right now. We'll see how B shapes up, because B might be an actual tier.
Okay, yeah, you never know. So for now, we'll put John. But he's a founding father, and he is. Though I don't personally know everything that he did, he is important.
Yes,
I know he's important. I'm pretty sure his name is one of those on the Declaration of Independence.
These first couple guys were alive for this time period for founding everything. So these are going to be some important people, at least in American history in general.
Right. So Thomas Jefferson. This is our next one.
The big boy.
Number 3. So we've been to the Jefferson Memorial.
We went to Jefferson.
Now we did not go to the John Adams Memorial.
It was a big statue of Jefferson.
Big statue of Jefferson.
And renovations.
It's currently under renovation construction or whatever. But what we did get to see was very nice. You don't get to have a monument like that unless you were important. This guy,
or forgotten.
We don't have to talk about George Mason.
Or
it's his fault for not signing the Declaration of Independence. Or wait, no, it was the Bill of Rights? No, he drafted the first Bill of Rights.
Declaration. No. It was. Maybe it was that one.
He drafted the first draft of the Bill of Rights.
It said he wasn't in that famous picture of everyone signing the Declaration of Independence because he didn't sign it. So they didn't include him in the picture.
But that doesn't matter. We're not talking about George Mason, because he's not a president.
Whoever he is.
He's not a president.
The forgotten,
Jefferson, on the other hand,
founding father.
Forgotten, right?
That's what it was.
Nobody forgets John Hancock. He wasn't a president, but he signed his name big. That was his claim to fame, right?
True.
So,
Jefferson.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say about Jefferson. His mug is one of the 4 on Mount Rushmore. He's got one of the biggest monuments in this.
He's on a bill.
He's on a bill.
Being on currency in the American system is very important.
Yes, one of our most important founding fathers, Ben Franklin. He was never ever president, but he's on the hundo.
The Ben.
Right?
He's on the Franklin.
You're on a bill. You're important. All right. Jefferson. He was the author of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Seriously. So this guy is insanely important. I don't know what besides laying groundwork he might have done as president. It might have just been that. Which, to that point, really makes him kind of more of a legislator than an executive, if you think about it. So, perhaps he was in the wrong. I don't know if he was a senator, perhaps, before, or if there was even a Senate established at that point. There had to be.
Yeah.
We didn't have. The country was founded in 1776, but George Washington didn't become president until 20 years after that. So.
There was a Senate.
I'm going to go ahead and say that it is not unreasonable to put Jefferson in A.
We'll put him in an A.
I think he's A. Do you have an objection to that?
We'll see how this list will develop.
Okay, this next one I think is James Madison.
Let's see what is he? We're hitting
James Madison.
We're hitting a line of Democratic Republicans.
Yes. So, despite the warnings of George Washington as he was leaving office, beware of political parties. Nobody listened to him, and they just decided to be part of political parties regardless. Yes, Madison is one of many of the line of Democratic Republicans that we would have. I think they're 4 or 5 in a row. I don't know much about him. I'm going to be straight honest. I don't know much about him. So I think he's the first one that's going to wind up in our.
Yes, I think a lot of these guys
don't know enough to judge. James Monroe. So, I only know James Monroe for having drafted the Monroe Doctrine, which is a very curious piece of legislation that we have no ability to enforce. The Monroe Doctrine basically says, it's a warning, essentially, to the European powers that they are not to interfere with the United States' conquest of the North American continent.
I see. Was he the one that said, "Don't touch all of Americas"?
Yeah, pretty much. He was basically warning Europe to not touch the Americas because that's ours. And that's all the Monroe Doctrine is. Does Monroe have the ability to enforce that? No. What was keeping the European powers from
Doing anything?
from
Conquesting?
what was
Invading?
what was making the European powers what's the word I'm looking for?
Colonize? Settle?
No,
Invade?
capitulate to that. Why were they agreeing to it? Why were they agreeing to it? I don't know. I think it was because at that point in time, they could see that the U.S. was expanding rapidly, and Europe was kind of racked at that point. I think after warring with each other for a bit, it just didn't want to be bothered by it. We didn't have planes back then yet. Everything had to be by boat. So you're really taking a
Didn't
big
even have
risk.
trains yet.
You're taking a big risk coming all the way over here on a boat to try to interfere with our conquest. Now, I may not agree with that. I think it's a bit of a strange, overly nationalistic idea.
It's a bold statement.
But strangely enough, the European powers at that point honored it. Probably, I don't know, for fear or just laziness. But they did. So there's that. I will come back to the Monroe Doctrine a little bit later on one of our other presidents because it's another bullet point for a different president. But for now, aside from that, I don't actually know much about what Monroe had done.
We do know something, though.
You know
so I think that means he at least escapes the don't know enough to judge tier.
Yeah, so I don't know that he, besides that being kind of a totalitarian thing, I don't know that that really affected anything negatively.
Did he even gain land for America during his presidency?
I don't know. He might have.
Or did he just say, don't touch anything?
I'm going to put him in C, under Adams, and really just because I know he didn't screw anything up majorly that I know of, but at the same time, he isn't like he ain't Jefferson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He ain't these other guys.
In fact, I'm already inclined to put Adams up in C. Because
B?
Yeah, because, into B because I don't know. I don't think that Adams should share the same breadth as Madison, to be honest. But anyway,
We'll see.
Next one we're going to be looking at, I believe this is John Quincy Adams.
Who I believe is also another Democratic Republican.
Well, it looks like he switched affiliation about halfway through to National Republican. Okay, this is about the point in time where the parties split. The Whig Party completely fizzled out. It got dissolved.
Yeah.
So there are no more Whigs, and the Democratic Republicans split off into being just the Republicans and the Democrats. And at this point,
Which we'll see in the next president.
yes, and at this point in time, the Democrats were the hardline right-wing party, and the Democrats were, or the Republicans were the more liberal sort of. Of course, that's obviously changed a lot by now, and unless you delve into it, you don't know that about our own history, because it's hard to imagine them being in opposite positions now, but that was the point.
So we can bring that up with another president later on.
Yeah.
That'd be a good example of modern ideals
exactly.
for those would be not
Yeah.
what you'd expect.
So, this is another one I don't know a whole lot about, unfortunately. So as
I think I can never remember, but I remember being told that one of the Adams was absolute trash and was super bad.
I'd be inclined to believe that it was this one.
I can never remember which one it is.
I would be inclined to believe it this one, but without knowing for sure, and I'm not going to do a Google search now, he's going to join Mr. Madison here. In the don't know enough, don't know, just don't know enough. So, what?
I'm seeing if he belongs above him or not. I think he's fine.
Yeah, I think he's fine. So next one is Andrew Jackson.
Now, I feel like I should know something about Andrew Jackson, but I don't. He's on currency, right?
He's on the $20.
He's on the 20, right?
He's on the $20.
The which I believe I've been told is the bill with the most circulation.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, besides like the one.
Well, everything runs off 20s these days.
Yeah, one is definitely, or the 20 is definitely handed around the most. It's the one that the ATM spit at you the most, that's for sure. So it's definitely the one that most people have in their pockets, like at a given time, if they have cash anymore at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I carry cash.
If people carry cash.
I carry cash, and I do often have a lot of 20s, so I see this man a lot. That doesn't mean I know a lot about him.
Yeah.
Now, I think...
But he's on currency, which is it's at least D tier.
Correct. So I'll slide him in. I'll slide him in there. Now, I think I might even keep him there only because the only thing I really know about Andrew Jackson is that he was a hardliner on slavery, and I didn't want that topic to come up too much, but
You're good. Keep talking.
what?
Checking to see if there's chat. Hello, chatters, if you're here.
Well, be that as it may.
Seeing if you're talking.
Yeah, Andrew Jackson was kind of like really pro-slavery to my knowledge, and it's part of the reason that a couple of years ago, I don't think anything went. I don't know what happened to that, but they were trying to get Andrew Jackson off of the 20 and replace him with Harriet Tubman. Remember that?
Oh, I think I did hear about that.
Yeah. I don't know what ever happened to that though.
I think they made a commemorative $20
For Harriet
yeah.
Tubman. Okay, well,
or a limited edition print run of them.
but it didn't happen.
Changing currency, I think, at this point is incredibly difficult.
Well, no, there was a point in time, like a long time ago, where they would change what was on the currency every 10 years.
The people?
The things. It wasn't always people.
Wow.
It was different. It was a long history of different stuff that was on the on the currency. I think it became presidents like around when the Red Scare was happening as a means to like rouse people to nationalism, to defeat the Red Scare, whatever. It's the same reason that we have In God We Trust on all the currency now too. It was never on there before then. That stuff was explicitly taken off or kept off the currency. But regardless, I'm only going to keep Jackson here kind of as a buffer, which kind of sucks, but
Someone's got to be it.
somebody's got to be D, and I'm going to keep him there. If maybe other people come around that are significantly worse than what I think Jackson was, I may bump him up to C, but I don't think I'm going to bring him up much more. Because I don't really think he's all that important. Like,
And we'll have if the D tier ends up developing more,
Yeah.
he may get bumped back down to the. We don't know. People.
yeah, we don't know. This is going to be an evolving list as we go. So, next one, Martin Van Buren. So Van Buren is kind of interesting to me. Not because of what he had done, because I don't actually know much about what he did. But he is the only president whose first language was not English. This man was born speaking Dutch. And that was kind of a big deal back then. But he did speak very good and fluent English. So, it obviously got him all the way to the presidency. He's also the only president who does not have a direct lineage, like ancestor. He's not a direct ancestor of King George of England. Like every U.S. president can trace their lineage back to King George, I think. That's been proven. Which is kind of crazy to think about that they're all related, but except for Van Buren. Van Buren's the only one. I guess his Dutch roots run just too deep.
There's a lot of weird stuff about coincidences with presidents.
That being said, I think for that fact, because it's really cool and unique, and the fact he's got some champion
I was
chops.
gonna say this man's facial hair is on a different level.
He's got some champion chops. That's at least low B. So, Van Buren, you're a cool guy. I like you, Van Buren. So next one, William Henry Harrison.
Also, welcome to Dan Tier's Half the Presidents, because he knows significantly more about other people than I do.
But yeah, you commented on the chops. You acknowledged the Van Buren chops.
The chops were strong. There are some of these later presidents, because I'm very interested in war for history, so some of the war presidents I'll know a little bit more about.
Okay, that's fair enough. I don't know nearly as much about war than you do. So William Henry Harrison is going into D. And the reason for that is very simple. He didn't do anything as president.
He's going to D.
He went to D. You know why he didn't do anything? He's the president that died a month into office.
Oh.
He,
Rest in peace.
yeah, he won the presidency, and as the story goes, all right, and there may be some like historical inaccuracies to the story, but the most commonly accepted version of the story is he gets inaugurated. He does his inauguration speech, but it's a curiously long inauguration speech, which he insisted on giving, and it happened to be raining that day, and he wasn't wearing a coat. The guy catches pneumonia, and he dies on his 31st day in office. So, and back then we didn't have proper medical treatment for stuff like that. Now that'd be
It'd be no
nothing.
problem.
It'd be no problem whatsoever. If you caught a little bit of pneumonia, whatever. He's in the hospital for a couple weeks, and that's it. They didn't have hospitals. They didn't have treatments for pneumonia. So he died.
Who was his VP? That took over for the rest of his term.
His VP would be
Later on the list?
Would be this man. Trying to remember his name. John Tyler. So John Tyler is another.
Is he on here?
Yeah, John Tyler's right here.
Okay.
I believe that's him. Yeah, that's John Tyler. So another one that I don't really know a whole lot about, but it's difficult when a president dies in office like that because you have.
Let's say we're gonna run into another thing for a president dying in office that we probably won't know much about. But that's way later.
So there's a lot of presidents that they die and then their VP they weren't expecting to have to take the job, so they end up sucking. There is one very noticeable exception to that rule, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But for the most part, if a president dies, their VP kind of sucks. Again, one notable exception to that, but for now,
I may know what you're talking about.
You may know what I'm talking about?
I may know.
Well, okay.
I don't know. I don't know for sure, though. I may have an idea.
All right. If you had to ascribe a time period to the thought, what do you think?
For the VP?
VP, yeah.
I would say probably around the 1940s.
1940s? Not quite, but
maybe 1930s, rather.
Not quite. Okay, so we'll get there. So, John Tyler, don't know much about him, other than, he was the VP that picked up after William Henry Harrison's very brief stint as president. But I don't honestly know enough about him, and he doesn't have facial hair enough to
He doesn't have strong
chops.
How's his chin line?
How's the jawline?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he has kind of a Crypt Keeper thing going on.
Which one? Oh.
It's this guy.
Ooh. Yeah, no, he's good there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. All right, so I don't know enough about him. But our next one, James Polk. So Polk is an interesting case.
So was Polk the one you said you had something to talk about?
Yeah, Polk is interesting. Because Polk is probably one of the most underrated presidents. I'm not going to say he's one of the best presidents. He's not. But he's one of the most underrated presidents that we've had. Because when you truly look back on what Polk had done for the country, it's actually kind of surprising. He pretty much by himself, with no intervention, doubled the size of the country. All right, he was the one who was very much into the phrase manifest destiny. It was the United States' divine right or whatever to venture west and conquer from sea to shining sea. That was him. That was Polk. He bought money land from the Mexicans and all this other stuff. He pretty much did double the country. And I don't remember exactly what they were, but I remember there was this fantastic video by a YouTuber named Mr. Beat who went over Polk. And Polk allegedly made four very specific campaign promises when he was campaigning, and he kept all four of them.
That's good.
It's kind of strange how, especially for back then.
What the promises were?
Yeah, I don't know what they were.
No, but keeping promises is better than about 95% of the politicians I see.
Yeah, it's especially today. So for Polk, I'm gonna slip Polk into B.
You're slipping to B.
Lower, because as cool as he was,
say gaining land's important. America, it gained a lot of land since it started.
If not for Polk, we wouldn't have the Midwestern states, almost guaranteed. We wouldn't have had a stark board to jump off to get Washington and Oregon. I don't think California was his bag yet.
Say the Midwest leads to getting the
Midwest leads over there. So, and Polk was responsible for securing us that land. So, I don't put him higher because some of the stuff that Polk had to do to get that land for us was a little shady.
Say questionable land acquisition at the time was questionable. I'm sure.
To say the least. So next up, we have, I believe this is another Taylor, if I'm not mistaken, like Zachary Taylor. Let me just double check that for a second. Yeah, Zachary Taylor. So this is a president who, Zachary Taylor was a war hero. He was very effectual as a general, or I forget what exactly rank he held, but he was very good at that job. And he got into the presidency almost kind of in the same way that George Washington did, in the sense that he was very competent in being a military leader, so they figured, obviously, he's going to make a good politician. That was not the case. Zachary Taylor was not a very effectual president at all. In fact, it may have been the stuff that he did that really began the unrest in the country that led to the Civil War.
Civil War was bad.
Civil War was bad. And Zachary Taylor kind of is responsible for starting the motions that led to it. So for that, I'm going to put Zachary Taylor into D.
That sounds like a D tier president.
That's a D tier president.
Not a C for Civil War, but a D for don't Civil War.
Please don't. But he did it, and the country's worse off for it. So the next one is Millard Fillmore.
I think you've mentioned this guy before.
Millard Fillmore, number 13. What's to say about Millard Fillmore? Well, Millard Fillmore is kind of a success story. Not in his presidency, but in the sense that he came from basically nothing. He was very poor. I forget what state he came from. It was a northern state, like New Hampshire or something. I don't know. But he came from nothing, born on a farm, right? He had pretty much no prospects in life, but he was a self-made man, to the point where, he managed to get his way all the way up to the presidency somehow. Once there, though, let's just say I didn't see a Millard Fillmore memorial out there, did you? Did you see one? I didn't see one. I didn't see one on the map even.
I don't remember seeing one.
So he was kind of another one of those presidents that go down in his... I'm sure he did stuff. I'm sure that most of these guys had done stuff
for being a man from nothing to something.
Yeah.
So you think he gets C tier?
You think C? Okay. I can deal with that. I would probably put him in high D myself, but C you said?
C.
C. Okay, yeah. That's more what I was thinking. Never mind.
Not B tier. That's too high. I think
B's too high, but yeah.
I think having merit to have gotten all the way means he was at least doing something correct.
Yeah. C for self-made. So, next one we have, I think, is Franklin Pierce. Pierce?
Everyone at home, if you ever question who the fuck are these people, don't worry, we say the same thing sometimes.
Yeah, so Franklin Pierce is kind of another one of those, just like Zachary Taylor. Kind of just sat on his hands. Well, we'll get to that in the next president specifically, but Franklin Pierce was another one.
We're getting to a good part here.
Yeah, we're coming up. There's a spoiler on the bottom. So Franklin Pierce didn't really do anything to assist the civil unrest that was building up in the country over, slavery, which was a big thing at the time.
Yeah.
Big thing.
We're getting there.
Really since the beginning of the country, but it was really coming to a head because there was a lot of civil rights stuff going on at the time that the North was all for, but the South was not, because a big part of their industry was on cotton. And who picks the cotton? It was of course the slaves that they had. So they were very much against it, and they were using the industry of cotton as sort of an excuse to get away with it for so long, much to the North's chagrin. But he didn't really help, Franklin Pierce. So
D tier.
I'm gonna put him at the bottom of C.
Oh, bottom of C.
Only because, again, just like
what did he do?
Taylor, he was a competent military hero.
More
military guys, right? So next we have James Buchanan. So as I alluded to in the Franklin Pierce one, Buchanan is actually the one that is known as the sitting on his hands president. This guy did literally nothing. I don't remember if he was supposed to be a Southern sympathizer or whatnot, but yeah, he did fucking nothing to help the very rapidly growing civil unrest. And in fact, I believe toward the end of his presidency, the Civil War began. So Buchanan, that one's an easy D for me.
Say we're gonna blast through this one.
I would even worst president, maybe worst president,
maybe worst president.
maybe
so far.
worst president. I have like 2 or 3 in mind that could be worst president in my hand. Buchanan's one of them.
I think one's already on the list.
One's already on the Oh, is it? No, it's not.
Oh.
Anyway. Okay.
We won't talk about it.
Maybe. Two of them might be. Anyway, Buchanan, yeah, easy. So now we have the big boy.
We have Mr. 16.
So after Taylor kind of screwing things up, Franklin Pierce not doing anything, Millard Fillmore not really doing much, Buchanan literally sitting on his hands. We get Abe.
We get Abe Lincoln.
We get Abraham Lincoln.
Let's.
You were kind of the Lincoln man. I think you might know more about Lincoln than I do.
I'm going to predisposition everything by saying Lincoln is my favorite president, but I'm going to say we're going to just get this out of the way. Lincoln's probably going straight to the top.
Lincoln. So there is no doubt in my mind, you will hear no question from me
all the way
whatsoever that Lincoln is in the S tier. Now, whether he's better than Washington is difficult. And this is, I think, something that goes this plagues every historian that even weighs in on this subject to determine which one is better between Washington and Lincoln. But I'm going to agree with you.
Lincoln number 1 so far.
For the simple fact that Washington's contributions were definitely necessary for the country's founding. But Lincoln inherited a country that was falling apart.
And so, obviously, for anyone who doesn't know anything about Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln was the president that signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which legally ended slavery.
In the North. Well, the Union. There was a tricky bit of...
It technically ended slavery, and I know from more recent events, slavery didn't actually end until much later.
No,
the last of the slaves were freed, but this was the thing that definitely got the ball rolling.
Oh, did you learn more about Juneteenth?
We had a presentation at work, I think, last year.
Yeah. So Juneteenth is when the slavery was actually officially done in every state, and they acknowledged it.
This definitely helped get the ball rolling, and obviously, if I'm not mistaken, he ended the Civil War.
Yes, he ended the Civil War. There's one man. I think he only had one term to do this. He got elected for a second one, right? And that's when he got assassinated, or
I think he got assassinated.
Or am I wrong? And he got assassinated toward the end of his first term. I'm not sure.
I think he got a second term.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if
he got a second term. I think so. I mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to mention, because we were talking about the political parties, that for me, Lincoln is an example of how the party ideas have changed over time. Because he is a Republican.
Yeah, he was a Republican back then.
Nowadays, in the American political system, there are people who are much more conservative about laws, and changing the entirety of the slavery system. Is not something.
I'm not going to sit here.
Conservative.
I'm not going to sit here and cast stones and pretend like the modern Republican Party is they condone slavery.
Yes,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
in an ideal way where we're saying that conservatives try to keep things the same.
Yes.
And Republicans are typically.
And they're typically.
I want to word it poorly.
The left wing is typically more liberal, and historically, in pre-1930s, the progressive or liberal party was the Republican Party. They're the ones that were trying to spearhead change, positive change. And the Democratic Party at the time was the more conservative party.
So, being a Republican and spearheading all these changes is not something that you might see from some things in
you wouldn't see
politics today.
You would not see it from a Democrat back then. Let's just say that.
There's some interesting politics. Is tricky, weird.
Right. So we have our first Republican in this, but consider that he's more of a left wing
This is our second. Obviously, I want to mention our second S tier.
Yeah, second S tier.
We said there would be a drought before another S tier came, and there's probably going to be another drought before an S tier comes.
Yeah, I'd imagine. If there might be any, like usually historians would stop there. But no, we may have a couple.
We may end up throwing a couple more presidents in S tier, but on a grand scale of doing things, we could probably put some people in S and then move these guys to like S plus.
Potentially, yes. These two are by far and away. We're not being unique whatsoever by saying this. Lincoln and Washington are very likely our best presidents we ever had. There's a reason that both of these guys are on both a coin and a bill on our money.
They
no other
dip.
president double dips.
They double dip, and they're both on Rushmore.
Yeah, and they're both on Rushmore. So, but don't forget, Jefferson over here, he's also on Mount Rushmore. And look at him. So far, our top three are all heads on Mount Rushmore.
There's another head on Mount Rushmore that will be coming up soon.
Yeah, he'll be coming up. He's coming. He's coming.
I do want to point, I mentioned this to you before when we've talked about Abraham Lincoln. Some trivia facts for people real quick. Apparently, he was a very soft-spoken and high-pitched voiced person.
This is true. I've read this as well.
Very contrary to the media adaptations of Lincoln of being a very loud, deep, bassy voice. He did not talk like that, nor did he actually like being called Abe.
No. It's very unfortunate that he was around at a time before we had reliable voice recordings, so we don't actually know what he sounds like. Nobody alive today was around.
The thing that we have for people, what he sounded like, are the people that he knew writing down in like journals and books or biographies about him.
Unfortunately, the man was an incredibly influential man, so he had a lot of people in his inner circle to be able to take this stuff down. It can't be the same. It cannot be said for the same for a lot of presidents, because there are some presidents that were very, very insular about that had a very small inner circle. Lincoln was not one of them.
I believe Lincoln also had a failure attempt at a different job before becoming a politician, and also failed at being a politician when he first started.
Not surprising.
Not
surprising. A lot of these guys are like that. They just try again.
And he's a vampire hunter. Lincoln's one of the presidents that's going to be at the top for probably anything.
Every list. The only people that would not consider, I think, Lincoln and S tier would be people of very unsavory political views today.
Some distasteful stuff that
we're not going to get into here. But
most likely, it just wouldn't be.
So Lincoln number one from you.
Lincoln's my favorite.
For you, yeah, he's your favorite, but he's also like number one. I am not going to contest at this point in time Lincoln as number one, because as cool and as great, as important and as necessary as the things George Washington did, I don't know if they're on the same scale as the things and the crap that Lincoln had to put up with.
Is Lincoln our first president that had been assassinated, or someone get killed before him?
Who are our assassinated presidents? Lincoln.
There's like
McKinley.
4 of them.
There's only 4 of them. Lincoln, McKinley, Kennedy, and I don't remember who the 4th one is. I always forget that 4th one. Garfield? No. Arthur. No. It was older than that.
Is it on? Do you think it's on the list?
I don't know. No, it wasn't this old.
No, but do you think that our trivia list, our fact list that we got?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you think it says who's been killed?
Oh, maybe.
Because this is, I believe he's.
I think it was Garfield.
Garfield.
Yeah, look at how short that tenure was. Yeah, he was assassinated. It was Garfield.
Okay, Garfield's the first.
Garfield's our first. He's our second assassinate. So yeah, Lincoln was our first
Lincoln's the first president that had been assassinated, which is obviously become a big deal.
Yes.
As nowadays, to the modern time, only 4 presidents have ever been
Yeah,
assassinated.
of the 46 we have had up to this point right now, only 4 have been assassinated. Others have died in office, but it's been from illness or something like that, or old age. Some of them just croak.
And we'll be probably looping back around to presidents dying.
Yeah,
in a bit.
in a little bit. Yeah, not very long. I don't think. We'll touch on Garfield in a little bit.
But
next we're gonna move on from Abe Lincoln. Good on you.
Good old Abe, honest Abe.
Yep, honest Abe. So next we're gonna go to Andrew Jackson. Or excuse me, Andrew Johnson, not Andrew Jackson. We were already through Andrew Jackson.
Say that we did that one.
Andrew Johnson was the VP for Lincoln. He was pretty much only picked because he was like a Southern Republican.
I would say that he have like opposing some opposing views to Lincoln, but he was
Lincoln's views, and he was pretty much picked to get Lincoln votes from the South.
Yeah.
His position as VP was a purely political one on Lincoln's part, or whoever was in charge of Lincoln's campaign. Right?
Decided to.
Needless to say, Johnson is one of historically the worst presidents we've ever had, because he did almost everything in his power to like roll back the changes that Lincoln had tried to make. The pains that he had went through and the literal death.
Literal assassination.
Andrew Johnson is one of my top picks for worst president of all time, right up there with Buchanan. Buchanan is guilty of doing fuck all. Andrew Johnson is guilty of going in the exact opposite direction as the president before him. I don't really think I have to say much more than that.
I'm just looking at this list.
Misa no like the Andrew Johnson. In fact, I'm almost inclined now to start weeding out some of the stuff in D and bringing them up into C, just so that Johnson and Buchanan can fester down there in the D tier where they belong.
Sure, we don't need an E tier.
No, we can do this with 5.
Okay, we'll see how. Do you think we need to get an S+ tier?
I'm willing, because Johnson and Buchanan are now in there, I'm willing to put the guy who died a month into office above and in a different tier.
I'll leave that to you to do at some point. Let's move on to the next.
Let's move on to Grant. So Grant is one of my favorite presidents. Not my favorite, one of my favorite. I think he's probably my number 2. Grant was instrumental in the victory in the Civil War. Just like Washington, brilliant military leader, excellent at rousing the troops, getting them where they needed to be. This is probably just historical revisionism for people who didn't like him at the time, or whatever. But there was a stigma of him where he was a ravenous drunk. I think that only makes him cooler. But
do you have good chops? Do any of the presidents have chops at this point?
So Grant, we're talking about facial hair. Okay, I'll give you this.
Well, there will definitely be some good facial hair guys.
I will give you facial hair facts about Grant right now. Grant is the first president to rock the full beard and mustache combo. Prior to this,
facial hair is very important.
It's very important to us. So prior to this, presidents only had either clean-shaven faces, mutton chops, as we've seen with Van Buren, and a couple of the others we'll get to. Or in the case of Lincoln, he had a beard but no mustache. So
good beard.
A good beard. Good beard.
Lincoln had a strong beard,
but it doesn't connect. There's no mustache. But Grant, Hiram Ulysses Grant, that was his birth name, or as the troops called him, Ulysses S. Grant, Uncle Sam they called him because of the beard. He was the first one to rock the full thing, beard and mustache, and it's a great beard. Look at him, it's great.
Yeah,
it's a great beard. Now, his beard game would very soon get outdone by the next 2 presidents, but we don't have to talk about that yet. So, Grant, I am comfortable, and you can correct me if you think you can fight me on this if you want. I'm putting him in A.
I think this A tier is looking a little weird with just
Adams in it.
With Jefferson.
What?
With just Jefferson.
Adams is down there. I'm sorry. That's what I'm gonna do. Now, say what you want about Grant. If he was a drunk, fine. I don't even care if he was. He's partly responsible. Like, Grant and Lincoln were like the big team back then, right? All three of them, three guys really: Lincoln, Ulysses Grant, and Sherman. You know Sherman. Yeah. Being the war guy. Sherman was never president, but if it wasn't for Grant and Sherman tearing things up the way they did, and Lincoln from the office making the calls, I don't think the Civil War would have turned out anywhere near as where it did.
Yeah.
So Grant, irreplaceable war hero, and made a pretty decent run as president too. It's often not talked about Grant, but he was also very much like Lincoln, a very fervent civil rights leader. He was very much on the same train with Lincoln and making sure that people got equal rights. Now, I don't know how successful he was at that, but the work didn't need to be done because by that point the Emancipation Proclamation was already a thing and the amendment was already put in and ratified by the states to abolish slavery. So really his was more just of a civil, like a normal civil rights thing, which, can't be understated. That's where I put Grant. I think that Grant could have been an S if maybe we knew more about him. Like I think he has the markings of an S, but I think he's a top shelf A personally.
We'll go for it. I don't know much about his
So the next one we got is, I believe, Rutherford B. Hayes.
So I think we're hitting another...
This is going to be another patch of presidents that I'm not too familiar with.
I think we're hitting a patch of I don't know who these people are.
So Rutherford B. Hayes, strong beard game.
All right, let's bring up the... Finally, that's a strong beard.
That's a strong beard game. For that alone...
I don't know tier.
Better than Millard Fillmore.
Oh, really?
Better than Millard.
You know anything about this guy?
Nothing at all.
Okay, so he gets high, don't know anything about tier.
What?
He gets the high, don't know anything about tier.
Oh, no, he's better than Millard Fillmore. Look at Millard Fillmore. You look at that man. Does he have a beard at all? No. Better than Millard Fillmore. Better than Monroe. Definitely better than Franklin Pierce. In fact... Do you want better? Bam, he's in B now. Look at that. Rutherford B. Hayes. It's in there. Done. It's in the books. Next, we're going to go...
Oh, no. Okay.
Next, we're going to go on to James Garfield. So
Garfield sounds familiar.
Yeah,
and not because of the cat.
Garfield sounds familiar because he was the next president to get assassinated.
Hey,
I don't know why Garfield was assassinated.
Fair enough. I was going to say, we don't. Why would we know any of that? But there's definitely some reasons on why Lincoln got assassinated.
Yeah. There have been enough things out on why Lincoln got assassinated. Yeah, I don't know why Garfield here was assassinated. I don't know. It's difficult for me to put a president that's been assassinated in the I don't know tier, but I gotta be real. I don't know.
Don't know.
What the beard?
Strong, but if he's going in I don't know tier, he's going in high I don't know tier.
Yeah, I'm better. Yeah, better than Millard Fillmore. Beard.
Dan's rating these guys' facial hair as being better than whatever these presidents have done.
Are you telling me that Chester A. Arthur's, we haven't gotten him yet, Rutherford B. Hayes' beard is not better than the entire presidency of Millard Fillmore?
I don't even remember what any of these people have done anymore.
Exactly. So, Chester A. Arthur is next. So, Chester A. Arthur is known for the chops as well. His chops connect to his mustache.
He's got the Captain Price beard, which means nothing to you. You haven't played Call of Duty.
Correct. But
Captain Price had that same thing, and if you rock that beard, mustache combo, whatever, if you rock that, you rock good.
And I think Arthur rocks it good. Let's get a bigger picture. The chat won't see this, but look at that.
Yeah.
Climbs down, and then it comes back up, defying gravity, and just connects to the mustache. I think it's impressive. But it's not a beard.
It's not a beard.
It's not a
but
beard.
It's a strong facial hair game.
It's strong facial hair game. And for that, I'm willing to put him right above Andrew Jackson. There.
All right, I need to check something. Real
Objections?
quick. I need to check something real quick. On Stream Guy's got to check stream stuff. We've only dropped 23 frames.
Good Wi-Fi on the hotel. Props.
And hold on 1 second. These buttons are awfully convenient. Oh.
All right. Just moving on to Grover Cleveland.
So when's the next president of that now? Okay, a little bit. A couple more.
So this is Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland is, of course, famous for being the only president that has been president twice with another president in between.
So we'll be coming back to Cleveland after the next guy.
No. He's okay. Fine. So number 22, Grover Cleveland. Yeah, he's been president twice. He has a good mustache. I've seen better mustaches on other U.S. presidents. We'll get to in a little bit. But I don't actually know much about what he's done. So I don't know.
I don't know tier.
I don't know tier because of mustache. So, next we have...
Number 23.
Next we have number 23. This is Benjamin Harrison. I believe this is the grandson of William Henry Harrison, who died a month into office.
Oh, okay.
But unlike William Henry Harrison...
He survived more than 31 days.
He survived more than that. I do believe he survived a whole term.
He survived his whole term.
But besides that, and besides having a good beard game, I don't know anything about it.
I don't know anything tier.
I don't know anything.
And here we are at president number 24, the guy that we just did before this one.
So president 24 is Grover Cleveland.
The only president ever in history to serve 2 terms non-consecutively.
In between, yeah. I think I'm gonna put him in don't know enough.
We should have put a second picture of him.
I'm not gonna do that. It's the same guy.
Would have been funny though.
Cocaine's real popular with the same guy.
It would be really fun. It would be funny. All right, next one.
Okay, so now William McKinley. So McKinley was not a... He was a bad president, but he wasn't a terrible president. All right, Buchanan, god-awful. Andrew Johnson, god-awful. McKinley was like your garden variety bad. You know, he didn't do anything that like really helped, to my knowledge. But he also didn't destroy the country.
We're still here. In fact, there were great presidents that came after him.
Correct. Some very soon after. McKinley, to me, the best thing that McKinley ever did in his presidency was die.
Jesus.
Because, well, hold on now. I alluded to this before. There's one very notable exception of a president dying in office and their VP being exceptionally good. So, because McKinley died, I will give him low C. I can't justify getting him any higher than that. I really can't. But it's a good segue into our next president, number 26, Theodore Roosevelt.
All right, well, Dan talks about Theodore Roosevelt when we get to water. We'll still be talking by the time I come back.
What do you mean? So Theodore Roosevelt, our 26th president, he had a very rich upbringing. He came from money, unlike a lot of these other presidents. Some of them come from money. But that was really more the earlier presidents. At this point in time, the United States, there was a bit of a wealth gap. So a lot of the presidents before him didn't exactly come from money. They usually come from military. He came from money. The Roosevelts at the time were pretty wealthy. This is Theodore Roosevelt Jr., by the way. So I don't have it on me at this point in time. But there's I showed this picture to you, Rob.
All right, China back, and Dan's still talking about Teddy.
And you weren't on long. This is not fair.
Well, I'm gonna go comb my hair.
So you have a comb?
Yeah, I brought my.
I forgot to bring a comb myself. Anyway, I showed you that famous picture, right, of the funeral procession for Lincoln going through New York.
Yep.
Yep, and there was in that picture. There's a 6-year-old. I think he was 6 years old. Theodore Roosevelt out peeking out the picture of their I think second or third story home in New York, looking over Abe Lincoln. I don't think Lincoln was like visible in that picture, but he was there. Pretty interesting photo. So,
We don't have it on hand.
just like a lot of these other presidents, Theodore Roosevelt was also very heavily involved in the military. He was
Speak softly and carry a big stick.
yes, that was one of his many famous quotes. He was involved in the, I believe, Spanish-American War. It was. War of 1812? No, not 1812. He's way older, younger than that. Yeah, I believe it was the Spanish-American War. He went out to Cuba himself and was involved in that. Won a very important victory there.
Can I talk about something
He served
Roosevelt
as,
did?
go ahead.
And this is probably one of the more. I want to talk about two things. One of them, the first thing I guess, is
Go ahead.
he started Parks and Recreation stuff.
Yes, very important.
He started the National Park Project or whatever.
He is well known as a famous conservationist.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. That's cool because these parks are cool, and it's nice to have them not be completely destroyed for metropolitan areas.
I'm very grateful to him for that as well. He's responsible for having commissioned the Panama Canal, and
I was going to bring that one up.
having us own that for basically 100 years.
Say the more questionable decision of
Listen, every president's got some shady shit on it. I'm sure even Lincoln had some shadiness under him somewhere. You have to dig far.
we just don't know what it is.
Yeah, we don't know what it
we
is.
do know that Roosevelt, from what my knowledge of American history is from my history class, Roosevelt proposed the Panama Canal to Panama, and they said no. So he supported the revolutionists that were in the country, and then they took over the country, and they said, yeah, we'll do it, and then they did it. And the Panama Canal has actually been a very important thing for the world.
Yes,
Instead of having to ship things all the way around South America to get from one ocean to the other.
Another thing that Roosevelt is responsible for is for the Roosevelt Corollary. I mentioned very briefly when we read the Monroe section, the only thing I know about James Monroe is the Monroe Doctrine. Well,
Roosevelt took that farther, right?
Roosevelt took the Monroe Doctrine farther and added onto it the Roosevelt Corollary. It's basically the Monroe Doctrine, except it also says that we are not only our European power is not allowed to interfere with stuff going on in the Western Hemisphere, but also the United States is apparently overseeing the safety and security of the Western Hemisphere.
America's here to back up any country in the Western Hemisphere.
You bet.
Apparently. Except Cuba.
Hey, win some, lose some.
We're going to talk... Yeah, we'll talk about... The Red Scare will be...
It'll be
We'll talk about the USSR.
Yeah, it'll get mentioned.
We'll get there.
But Roosevelt, for all that being a war hero... Oh, I didn't even talk about him being his president yet. Jeez,
You didn't even talk about him getting shot.
I didn't talk about... Yeah, there's also that this is a man's man we're talking about, right? Lincoln, yeah, he got shot, he died.
I mean, I think he got shot in the head.
He did get shot in the head. But he got shot, he died. Kennedy...
I mean, he died the next day.
Kennedy, he got shot, he died.
He was dead.
McKinley, he got shot super dead. Roosevelt gets shot in the chest on his way to give a speech, and then he just says, "I'm fine." Gives a speech for over an hour while he's bleeding out, and he just keeps going on. He was still president after that. The man dies in his sleep. All right, and I don't remember the name of the president at the time. I think it was not Taft's. Woodrow Wilson's VP or something like that. That famous quote of Roosevelt, right, when he died in 1919 in his home. The VP at the time said that death had to take Roosevelt in his sleep, because if Roosevelt had been awake, there would have been a fight. And he was. He was I think he was the runner-up boxing champ when he was in college. Right? He's a pugilist through and through. All right? He wore these really cool pince-nez glasses that I wish weren't so expensive so I could get a pair myself, even if it's just for the frames. Man was all over the place.
And if I'm not mistaken, he was. This has nothing to do with actually him. He was played by Robin Williams in Night at the Museum, and Robin Williams was a fantastic actor.
He was played by Robin Williams in Night at the Museum. Also, no president on this list has a better mustache.
The mustache game is strong.
Mustache game is strong. I've seen mustaches, all right? And for some reason, most people who try a mustache today can't make it work. It always looks like this hideous 70s porn mustache. But Roosevelt's does not look like that. Roosevelt's looks like a man's mustache.
I think it was the glasses. I think the glasses tied it all
help it out. Be that as it may, I'm putting Theodore in low S. What do you say?
I'll let you indulge yourself here.
Where would you put him?
Probably that or high or low A or high. Sorry, high A.
That or high A. I think
either he's the bottom of S or the highest of A.
I think there's personally a big enough difference between Roosevelt and Grant to keep Roosevelt in S.
There's another president with a very similar name that I think will be going into a high tier as well.
Maybe. I don't know how you do it.
But we're not there yet.
Won't be for all the way.
A little bit. We got a little time.
A little bit of time. All right. So Taft.
I've heard that Taft is a bad president.
Taft was kind of a bad president.
Was Taft the fat one?
Taft is known as the fat one, yes.
Who couldn't fit in the bathtub?
That is a tale about Taft, yes. So Taft...
I just want to put a comment. I think now we're in the
early
1900s.
We're in the early 1900s.
We're talking 1910-ish era.
Roosevelt was president from 1901 to 1908. Taft took over for a one-term presidency until 1912. So,
we're gonna have major things to talk about from here on out for a couple years.
Yeah, so here's what I know about Taft.
World events.
Here's what I know about Taft. Taft and Roosevelt before him were actually good friends. They both, I think, worked together in New York, if I'm not mistaken. They had a lot of similar ideals. But for some reason, when Roosevelt left office, and let's be real, Roosevelt kind of like cradled Taft into the presidency because they were friends. So like with Roosevelt's blessing, it didn't take much work for Taft to get the presidency. However, many things happened during Taft's presidency that did not really sit well with Roosevelt. One of which being the sinking of the Titanic happened during Taft's presidency. Now, obviously, that wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
But it did strain Roosevelt and Taft's relationship because they did lose their mutual friend, Archibald Butt.
Mr. Butt.
Mr. Butt. I don't think he was in the movie. I've never seen the movie, though, so I don't know.
You've ever seen Titanic?
I've never seen Titanic.
I think I've seen Titanic too many times.
Be that as it may, even though they lost Archibald Butt, I think the real big thing was policy. It came down to policy. Roosevelt, despite being, well, I guess not despite, we were still before the party shift. He was a Republican, and he was a very, very left-wing president. In fact, he's easily the most progressive president we've ever had. So progressive, in fact, we'll get into this in a minute, and it is relevant for the Taft part. The election of 1916, or 1916? 1912. The election of 1912. This was, Taft already had the blessing of the Republican Party at the time. And Woodrow Wilson was the Democratic candidate at the time. Roosevelt hated that Taft pretty much turned his back on the progressive platform that Roosevelt had built all the way up to that point for the 8 years he was president, that he was so bitter that he started up a third party called the Progressive Party, also called the Bull Moose Party, to the layman, just to spite Taft and take votes away from him, which was, if I'm not mistaken, the most successful third party campaign in United States history. Because if you look at I don't have it in front of me, but if you look at the map of like which delegates from which states went to which candidate, it's mostly Wilson. But there's a handful of yellow states there that are all Roosevelt. and then there's like one red state for Taft. I forget which one it was, like Iowa or something. Yeah, I think that's the one time a third party has beaten, like, and significantly beaten one of the two major parties in a presidential election. And it worked because of that, and the Republican Party is effectively being split between Taft and Roosevelt. Woodrow Wilson was, like, gifted the presidency, essentially.
So I've heard that Taft set up Wilson to take.
Yeah.
If Taft hadn't been the president before Woodrow Wilson might not have been the president after Taft.
Correct. So, I guess the only other thing I know about Taft, really, is that Taft is the only president, this is a fun fact, Taft is the only president that has also served on the United States Supreme Court. In fact, he was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Not for too long. I think it was only for like 6 to 8 years or something like that, and then he retired. But yeah, cool. He's worked from both. And in fact, I don't know, this is off the top of my head, but it's possible that perhaps Taft was even involved in the legislative branch as a representative or a senator. If he was, that would mean that he's been involved in all three branches, which would be unique to him. But even if he wasn't, I know that he's the only one that's been involved in the judicial branch. So for that and, I mean, Mustache Game. It's not as strong as Theodore's by any stretch. But, lower than the dead guy.
So,
Wilson.
Historical context, I guess, is probably important for at this point. For anyone that doesn't know when Woodrow Wilson was president, from when we were also just describing dates, and I'm not going to pin down dates exactly because some dates aren't very good in my memory. We're on the verge of World War I, if not World War I has already started. And immediately after World War I is the Great Depression.
It's a rough series. We've seen this before. We saw this when Zachary Taylor was, agitating civil unrest, and then Franklin Pierce didn't do anything, and then Millard Fillmore didn't do. I might have mixed those two up. Millard Fillmore didn't do anything. Franklin Pierce didn't do anything. James Buchanan just sat on his hands. And then Lincoln had to inherit that mess.
Well, here we only had one president between a president who did a lot of things and a president who then also had to do a lot of things.
So do you know much about Wilson?
I don't know much. I don't.
Because I'll be real with you. I don't actually know a whole lot.
I don't know a significant amount about Woodrow Wilson. But
what I do know about Wilson is that apparently he was god-awful.
Really?
In retrospect.
Oh, in retrospect. Well, say, if I'm not mistaken, he's the one that brought us out of the Great Depression.
That was Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt.
Oh, it's way later?
Yeah, it's way later. The Depression happened that was going on for a long time.
Well, it starts in the 20s.
Yeah.
I don't think it lasted until World War II.
I think it did. Hey, Google.
We don't
have the nest.
We don't have it with us. I mean, I don't know a lot about Woodrow Wilson in retrospect. Other things I do know or whatever I can semi-accurately remember from history class.
So what do you think?
And I believed he helped with the time frame. I mean, if anything, I do believe he got us through World War I, which America didn't have a significant impact on for people as we would later in World War II in comparison. America for World War I was mostly an arms dealer.
Okay.
To the Allies.
I mean, yeah.
Or whatever they called themselves during that war. And for anyone who might somehow be living under a rock, World War I is the Great War. If you know it as the Great War, I don't know how that works internationally.
I don't know.
So,
especially for the countries that were involved in that more heavily than we were.
Yeah. So World War I was obviously the first major war that has consumed the world on a global scale, the likes of which has never been seen before, and has royally fucked us up. So.
Wilson?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean,
I want to put him like maybe in low B, but I kind of think that's too high for like how history's been looking back on him lately.
Say I don't know how he's been looked back on lately, but I remember him being told that he was important.
Important, sure. I'll give him that. I'll give him, despite the total disgusting lack of beard game, I'll put him above Rutherford.
Say I'm not as big of a history nut for World War I as I am for like World War II and more modern wars.
Yeah, see, that's the difference between you and I. I think you'd have a lot more to say on the contemporary stuff than I would, because honestly, my contemporary American history is a little bit lacking.
Say the next president that I'll probably actually have information on is still a couple further away.
All right, well, Warren G. Harding. What do we think about Warren G. Harding?
See, I think we've hit the. See, for me, we have hit the lull between.
I'm right here now with him.
Say we've hit the lull between. Let me be real here. Taft, Woodrow Wilson, and FDR.
Yeah.
And the lull there is, I have no clue. Unless you give me a name, I probably won't know who these people are. And even if you do give me a name, still don't know who that last guy was.
You don't know these guys' names by their faces?
No.
Really? You couldn't point out to me who that guy is.
What was the last guy's name?
Warren G. Harding.
I don't know, man. You did just say that.
Okay, who's the next guy?
God, can I even see this?
I'm not gonna pull it up. I know who everybody is here.
I mean, yeah, you know the presidents more. I don't know. I haven't committed the presidents to memory.
That's Calvin Coolidge.
Yeah.
Okay, truth be told, I don't know shit about this
guy. There we go.
I can recognize him by his face, but that's it.
And his face has no facial hair.
No facial hair. D? Okay.
No.
Okay, who's the next guy then? You know him?
No. Wait, I probably should. You probably will say it, and I'll probably remember.
We've said his name today.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
That's Herbert Hoover.
Yes, I did.
All right.
What Hoover do?
I think you have more info. He commissioned the World War I. He commissioned the World War I memorial out there. That's all I got. I think a vacuum cleaner is named after him.
I'm not going to say I know for certain, but I'm pretty sure the Hoover Dam's named after him. I don't think it's named after.
But did he do it? That's the thing.
I don't think he did it, but I think it's named after him. I don't know. I don't think that one's specifically named after the guy who made it.
Unfortunately, this is a very, very unfortunate gap in our collective knowledge of contemporary American history.
See that point? It's a low point, and it's not because it's a low point.
It's not because these guys aren't important. I'm sure they are.
It's not because it's a low point in history. It's that the 2 points that can trace it or encompass it are significantly high. The World War I and Great Depression are important times across the globe, because while the Great Depression, I don't know if it's known as throughout the rest of the world as it is in America, it did impact the entire world.
Oh yes, for sure. But now we get to the big boy.
Now we got the FDR. So now we're setting the stage for a World War II, and we'll get this out of the way early. We are on FDR, correct?
We are on FDR.
Franklin Roosevelt is the only president to serve more than 2 terms.
And it wasn't
even 3 terms. It was 4 terms.
It was 4 terms. He might have died at the beginning of his 4th term, but he still got elected 4 times.
For 4 terms. So FDR was the president that navigated us through the entirety of World War II.
Yeah, and that's
until almost the end, pretty much.
That's really the reason that he was doing all those terms too. To give, to in the middle of the war, expect for somebody else to pick up the reins.
Yeah,
would have been insanely irresponsible.
Yeah, that was something that many people talk about. His relationship that he had with our current, then at the time, ally, Stalin. Mm-hmm. They had actually a good relationship, from what I've heard, compared to what most people would have had with Stalin.
Right.
And with how growing tensions within Russia were with the rest of the Western world throughout this time period and the following time period of the Cold War, it'd be very bad to have Russia need to get adjusted to another president.
Leader, yeah. I don't think Russia had very many allies at that time.
No. World War II was incredibly messy.
Well, I'm sure it is.
For
You get that
for
many cooks in the
politics,
kitchen all at once.
for politics and stuff like this. So obviously, World War II was way more destructive to the entire world than World War One
Needless
was.
to say, FDR was an insanely important. Like, he was the guy that got us through that, and he kept a level head the whole time.
So this was the
While doubled with polio. Like,
Is this the 7-year plan or the 5-year plan? Was that him?
this is the New Deal.
The New Deal. That's
New
it.
Deal.
The New Deal.
Which is not to be confused with Theodore Roosevelt's Square Deal, which is something different. But these guys like their deals.
Yeah, Roosevelt has done many. I don't know. I'm sure he's done many things politically.
You don't get to be president that long and do nothing. Right.
Politically, that also helped form what was going on. Because unfortunately, the best times for America, economically, typically, are the times where we're at war with something. Because we sure do love making bullets.
It's pretty atrocious. I don't like it, but that's...
It's unfortunately seems to be the way, historically speaking, it has been.
Now, I am very inclined, based off of just everything that we've said, to slip FDR in the S tier. However, I can't ignore the elephant in the room, the Japanese internment.
Yes, okay, this is very important. For anyone from America, because I don't know how much is well known outside of America.
It's not taught very well.
Outside of America, which it may be taught more, because American history that they teach you in school is very swayed to make America look like the good guys all the time. Japanese internment in especially specifically on the West Coast, as it was heavily done, it was very bad. It was a very poor taste. Looking back at history, we can definitely tell that was
a shotgun decision.
That was
not well thought out.
It was over dramatic for the situation.
Facts are facts. It happened. You can't take it back. It's a stain on his legacy. A big stain.
And it's probably a stain that will get bigger as time progresses, as we are becoming... As time happens right now, we are seeing that these things are becoming more important to people.
Yes,
which
because of that,
is important.
Because of that alone, I have a really hard time putting him in the S, but I wouldn't be against putting him in high A. What do you think?
I was going to say he's an S tier, but you do bring up that point. I am not someone, personally, who believes that one negative thing can outweigh almost every good thing someone has done.
No, but that's a big thing.
It's a big thing.
That's a big thing.
So far, it is our one thing.
Yes.
But
the good FDR, cannot be ignored that this did.
FDR has done a lot. He, unfortunately, is one of the presidents now that we know has a very big minus, which is keeping him back.
Yeah. If it wasn't for that, I think I put him in the likes with Lincoln and Washington. I put him above Teddy. I would. As much as I love Teddy, if it wasn't for that holding him back, I would put him above Teddy. Also, Theodore Roosevelt hated the name Teddy. just like Lincoln hated Abe.
So next one's Truman, correct?
This is Harry Truman. This is the guy that took over. This was
he took over
Franklin's VP
after the fourth term.
Yeah, he died early in the fourth term.
I don't know a super amount of Truman.
Nor do I.
I was going to say I believe Truman handled the rest of the presidency that he inherited, I think, moderately well.
He did.
At least. I guess the biggest thing to talk about with Truman for the elephant in the room is he was the man that decided to nuke Japan. Yeah. He was the one that gave that okay. And I don't necessarily want to get into the humanitarian things about the nuclear bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
It's bad.
It's bad.
It puts kind of a stain on not only his presidency, but also us as a country, because we're the only one that's actually dropped a nuke on another country.
Yes. So I have done research on this specific thing for
Yes.
history class, because I was doing research on the end of World War II, and I can, from what my knowledge is of the time, the military estimates for deaths and of having, if it wasn't going to be the nuclear decision, it was going to be a full-scale land invasion of Japan, which actually would have caused more death, estimated. So, is it a good decision? That is a personal thing, obviously. Was it the right decision? Also,
So basically, we just got a guy who has to unfortunately inherit the rest of World War II,
Yeah.
and he's given a lose-lose situation.
he's given a really bad situation to do. For my personal thing, I would, and I hate saying it because it sounds really bad. If America as a country had not dropped nuclear weapons on another country, and we didn't have that knowledge in the public like it is now, I don't know who would have been the first one to do it. Because immediately after this time period, we were followed by the Cold War, where we have two superpowers in the world pointing nukes at each other for about 40 years.
Yeah, well.
And it's the tension of, we know what they do, that holds things back from going all out.
Something that Andrew Johnson never had to deal with.
So, the destruction, though, of a nuclear weapon it's astonishing. It's really scary that these things exist in this world.
Yeah, so it's important that Truman, I guess, set the precedent. And since then, nobody has been brazen enough to try it.
As far as to my knowledge, no other country has nuked another country.
No, they just do like test nukes out in the ocean.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the fisherman guy had to pay for that. Rest in peace, man.
So be that as it may,
But I do.
where would you slip Truman in the list, though?
I think Truman, I mean, I don't know anything super negative that Truman has. That's like...
The only other thing I know about Truman is that famous like troll photo of him holding up the newspaper. You know that one?
I don't...
Yeah, there's a picture of him holding up a newspaper. Actually, was it him or was it Eisenhower? I think it was Truman. Of him holding up a newspaper because they had been doing like a lot of late night voting for the presidential election that he was supposed to be. Obviously, he got into the presidency because FDR got... Well, he was killed. Or
Died.
He died, excuse me. He ended his life. No, he didn't end his life. It ended.
He died.
He died.
He died.
He died. And then... But I do believe after Truman served the rest of FDR's fourth term, he then went for re-election and he won that. I don't remember who his political opponent was, but the voting went really, really late into the night. And the way that it had looked, his opponent was going to win. So all the newspapers for that day were printing out headlines where it would say that his opponent won. And so when it came out, the voting was done and Truman won. He held up like the newspaper of his opponent winning, and he had a big grin on his face.
I could be wrong on this as well, and I want to go back and mention something about a president we just passed.
Okay.
That I do believe is also important.
Revisiting
and interesting.
is good too.
I believe Truman was the president that had a little sign thing on the Oval Office desk that said "The buck stops here." I think that was him.
Oh, I don't know. It could be.
What for anyone who doesn't know is the problems stop. He doesn't pass them off to someone else to then figure out.
Okay.
I believe it was one of the presidents during this time period. I believe it was Truman. I could be wrong.
Well, I only know one last thing about Truman. Then we can make our determinations based on everything
We'll
else.
slide him in.
Truman was the final president to sport facial hair. Now he didn't sport it in the photo.
I was gonna say I don't
But there was a brief point in time when Truman was on a vacation where he grew out a mustache. I have tried. Believe me, I have tried to find photos of this.
It's hard.
But I couldn't find one.
This is deleted information from American history. Truman's mustache must not be known.
Yeah, the Secret Service has gone to great lengths to censor any and all footage or pictures of Truman's mustache, but it is on record on multiple sources.
I I think we can slap Truman probably in the B tier.
The B? Okay. High B, low B? Where we
Maybe like a mid B.
Better than
I think
Wilson? Better than Van Buren?
Let's put him better than Van Buren.
Oh.
For more things do we know about him than, damn, that facial hair nice.
He had facial hair for a little bit. Anyway.
I want to go back and talk about I think FDR did actually.
Okay.
And I believe I don't want to sound like an idiot, but I keep saying, if I'm wrong, he was the one that did the fireside chats. I believe.
I think you're right.
I believe that was FDR.
I think you're right.
Fireside chats were, I believe, a nightly or maybe a weekly thing where he would actually get on public radio and talk about stuff.
Yeah, okay, that was FDR.
Over the radio to
he was a
the
very
American
well-connected
people.
president. He was the first one to do something like that, to keep people, like the average person, up to date.
Yeah, so I think something like that is very cool for a president to, as we could probably assume from people these days, have no time to be doing stuff.
Right.
Outside of this important decision-making, probably.
All right, well, next we have Eisenhower. Oh, excuse me, I shouldn't have spoiled that for you.
I know Eisenhower.
You know Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Do you know all these people now from here on?
Most of them. I can probably get most of them.
Who don't you know?
I'm getting a little fuzzy over here in this middle section after Nixon.
Okay. All right. Well, I know all of them by face from here on.
I probably know the names a lot better.
Well, you've definitely heard the names.
So we are now post World War II.
Post World War II. So Eisenhower. Do you know anything about Eisenhower?
He was a general, right?
I believe so.
I believe he was a World War II general. That's I think why he got this spot.
Yeah, it's a very common thing in America.
Military service. That's probably
again. It's also a precedent that George Washington himself has set. Like I said, you can't understate how important George Washington was. He sort of set the general tone for the country for
presidencies. I don't actually know much about what Eisenhower did outside of like World War II stuff.
Sure.
As a president.
He went by the nickname Ike for some reason, and we like Ike.
Ike.
So I think that alone, just under Van Buren.
And as a reference, Ike's chant in Smash Bros. is "We like Ike."
Absolutely.
That was just probably a reference to that, if I had to guess.
So John F. Kennedy.
Here, I believe,
most recent president to be assassinated.
I think here we have entered into a weird spot because Kennedy was not in office for very long.
No, he wasn't. But he did lead the country through a very tumultuous time.
Yeah, and he was very young, right?
Yeah,
he was the youngest president.
He was the youngest elected president. The youngest president was Theodore Roosevelt, but he wasn't elected at the time he became president. He became president because McKinley got assassinated. But John F. Kennedy was the youngest elected president.
And we didn't actually get to see much of what Kennedy was going to do before he was assassinated.
But from what I do know, the man was insanely charismatic.
Yeah, that has been a legacy he has left behind. Kennedy is often loved by people.
Yeah.
And I don't actually know much about what his politics were for things. But some of the knowledge that I have is actually just about his death, so I'll wait for that until I don't know if you got info.
No, I got nothing. Go ahead.
For
like
anyone,
I said, these more recent presidents, you're probably gonna know. I would say like up until right about here.
You're gonna pick up once
have
we
gaps
get.
of knowledge.
You're gonna pick up when we get later. There's an important one coming up soon that there's gonna be a big thing about. But for anyone who knows anything about how guns work. The courts were actually apparently believing this magic bullet theory, which you can actually search on Wikipedia and it has its own page.
Of course it does.
About how JFK was shot with a single bullet and killed.
Yeah.
For a bullet that somehow would have entered his head, went straight down to his lungs, punctured out of himself, pierced the guy because the other guy got hit, pierced out of him, hit him, and then ricocheted again out of him. And for people who know how bullets work, bullets don't work like that.
So was there a second gunman?
There was multiple shots, I believe. I mean, the assassination of JFK is obviously something that I don't actually know a lot about significantly. I think they've released more information since, like, recently.
It'd be a
couple
fascinating
years.
topic, I think, to look into.
Who was the guy I need? Because there's a connection here that I need to make sure. I believe there was 3. Who was the guy that killed Lincoln?
John Wilkes Booth.
John Wilkes. Okay, so there was a third connection here, but coincidentally, Lincoln dies in Ford Theater.
Oh, and you're going to go down this rabbit hole.
No, I just think it's a funny coincidence.
There's a ton of coincidences. There's a whole website dedicated to the coincidence.
But then Kennedy dies in a Ford Lincoln.
Yes, he does.
Because Lincoln's apparently made by Ford.
Yes.
Which I did not know before that. Because I don't know anything about cars.
And I don't know. I don't feel bad.
There are many conspiracies about things I am not going to touch on, and I am not a very big conspiracist guy. I will establish that. There are some conspiracy theories that I think are really funny. Mm-hmm. I think there are some that could have maybe some truth, and there are some that are batshit fucking crazy. And most of the ones surrounding JFK assassination are batshit fucking crazy.
I only had to hear the magic bullet thing the first time, and I was like,
yeah.
You're not the one that introduced me to that. I've heard that before.
The magic bullet theory kills me. That was actually getting believed in a court of law.
It kills you. Well, it killed Kennedy, so that's 2.
But Kennedy. So let's actually, we do have some context for Kennedy. Kennedy was alive during the Cold War, and a very important part of the Cold War, if I'm not mistaken, and things were really heating up, and he actually did a pretty good job of keeping them cool.
Yep, it was because of his level-headedness through the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yes, he was around for Cuba, and Cuba was a big problem for America. For anyone who doesn't know about the Cold War, and I guess a little historical context,
go ahead.
America and Russia, or then, is USSR or Soviet Union more accurate?
I believe it was the USSR by that point.
USSR were engaging in helping other countries dictate what form of government they wanted, pretty much, with the USSR being communists and America supporting democracy.
Right.
And countries that without getting super political again or whatever, countries that probably should not have had these 2 countries fighting in them. Because the Cold War, while America and Russia never declared war and or shot at each other, I guess in a more technical sense.
The tension was as real as any actual war.
But they were supporting countries and sides during revolutionary wars within countries.
Yeah, they were engaging in a whole bunch of proxy wars.
Which one is technically still going on today. These wars are the Vietnam War, which has ended, and apparently Vietnam was communism. I'm not going to say fall to communism, that's a little too pretentious. Became a communist nation and has done very well, if I'm not mistaken. I've heard Vietnam, I think, is actually pretty good compared to how apparently other communist nations tend to.
So the thing with as I understand communism, all right, I guess this is gonna get me be getting a little bit political, but the communism as a system of government in and of itself on paper isn't a bad idea. The issue comes with, in order for it to work, everybody in it has to be perfectly altruistic, and that's just not human nature.
That's just not how people are.
That's just not how humans are. Communism would work perfectly fine in a country that was nothing but robots, with prime directives and all this stuff.
Russia and China being the 2 biggest communist nations in the world, which is causing modern day issues with people.
Because communism effectively creates a power vacuum at the top that anybody with any sort of aspirations can just swoop in and take the helm.
For the Russian Revolution, before they became a communist state, was fought by the farmers and the peasants and the lower class in order to try and gain equality, and it hasn't turned out that way. As we know, there are still plenty of people in countries that are running away with everything when it should have been something that everyone gets a little everything. Stuff like that. But the
well, go ahead.
I say as the Cold War was heating up, Kennedy was able to help talk with.
Cold War was heating up.
Who was in charge of Russia? Was it still Stalin? Stalin was still in charge. Was it Gorbachev? Was that the next guy?
Gorbachev was later.
Later?
Gorbachev was during Reagan, I think.
Well, they were still the USSR, right?
Yeah, they were still the USSR. I don't know.
I think Stalin. I don't know if Stalin was still alive. I believe he might have been. I don't know much about Russian times at this point. But the Cuban Missile Crisis was Russia supporting Cuba, and the scare that Cuba would have nuclear weapons that they could launch at a moment's notice from Russia's command at the U.S., which would be a great, significant threat. And we did not like that as a country of America. We still don't really like it. Relations with Cuba at that point have degraded to a point of almost no return, and it really hasn't seemed. It's gotten a little bit better, but it still doesn't seem to be any significant change, which seems really, to me, is unfortunate. Because it seems to be over some really archaic actions at this point.
That's like everything today now.
I don't want to say the 40s and going into the 60s are long ago and archaic.
They kind of are at this point. We're talking about stuff that's like
we are getting to a point now.
60 to 80 years old.
These people who are alive at that time are still alive.
Yeah, but a lot of them are like really old.
But we are getting to a point where things are different. So hopefully, relations with countries can improve.
I'm hoping,
and we don't nuke the fuck out of each other.
Back to the task at hand. Where are we putting Kennedy?
I think Kennedy actually belongs.
I think he belongs in A, personally.
I think Kennedy gets a high tier. It's for me, it's really hard to say where Kennedy truly belongs, because Kennedy did not get much time to shine.
But would you be opposed to me putting Kennedy there?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. Below FDR, a little bit better. I'm sorry, Grant. I know you're falling a little bit, but it hurts me too.
Read up on. I would recommend people to read up on the 1900s time periods, just in general, from anywhere around the world, because I believe that time period is just very interesting.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that have happened in the 20th century.
I think what basically the whole mid 1900s to now is like the way that everything booms and moves is like the Industrial Revolution in America, but worldwide.
Yeah. And a lot of things that have been done, and I guess America has also actually been a big player in some of these, impacted the world in significant ways, and we are still feeling the repercussions for some of these poor decisions to this day.
Yeah, for sure, and we're still making bad decisions.
And some of those decisions have been made by people that we are not cheering today.
Boy, can't imagine who you might be talking.
There's been a couple of them. I'm sure more people would say either way, because there have been decisions on both ends that have not been very well.
So Lyndon B. Johnson.
I say this is Lyndon Johnson. I know that one. I knew that one.
Okay. Can you still name it, everybody here?
No, I got this one and the next one.
Really? You're on the next two?
Well, this one what we're on, and I know the next guy. I mean,
really? You don't know who's after Nixon?
No, I can't. I don't know the name off the top of my head.
Do you remember the guy after that guy?
No, I don't.
Who's after that?
I mean, then we got Reagan.
That's Reagan,
Bush, and Clinton.
H.W. and Clinton. Okay, so you really don't know those.
Bush Senior.
All right. Fine, fair enough. But Lyndon B. Johnson, I've actually heard quite a bit of good things about Lyndon B. Johnson. That his handling of everything post Kennedy was admirable. I don't know what you've heard.
I haven't heard. I mean, I don't think I've. Once you start, I mean, I think Johnson gets a little outshined by how people have an enamor for Kennedy.
Yeah, Kennedy is like super charismatic and he's handsome.
And
Lyndon B. Johnson's not very handsome.
And then being trapped immediately after with what we'll talk about with Nixon. I think he's got someone who has been idolized by the American people before him, and someone who is, I guess, kind of been demonized by the American people after him.
You're not saying it's not for good reason.
We'll get there.
What do you think if we just had to spitball Lyndon B. Johnson?
I don't know. I'm looking at these tiers. Are they? I think they're kind of forming a little okay. The higher tiers definitely thin, but that's to be expected. I don't know. B tier.
B.
So you might know more about him than I do.
I'm thinking for Lyndon B. Johnson, right here. Wait. Right
there.
God damn you. Thank you. Right there. I'm
Okay.
thinking that.
Richard Nixon. Let's see if we know anything. Let's talk about Richard Nixon before the Watergate. Because obviously Nixon is known for the Watergate scandal. Do you know anything about Nixon before that time?
Nixon was the first president to try this ridiculous trickle-down economics thing, which would eventually, for some reason, become attributed to Reagan and under Reaganomics. But Reagan was not the first person to try this. Nixon was very much a corporatist. He was very involved with corporations and big money. He's kind of the precursor to the modern Republican, in a sense, in terms of like.
I do want to mention we have now gotten really to the point of presidents that we are still feeling the repercussions of decisions that these men have made.
Yes. I don't really feel the repercussions of the things that Martin Van Buren did, or Andrew Johnson, or friggin' Millard Fillmore. But we still feel Nixon.
I think from here on, these presidents are modern enough for us to be talking about in a context of things they have done being a little bit more aged.
Yeah.
But these people have done things that we are still feeling for sure. They are definitely, I've heard some strong things about some people on the list. There's one point.
I'm gonna be real. And it might be my bias. It's probably political bias. I don't like Nixon. I don't dislike Nixon to the point that I would put him with Buchanan and Johnson, though. My disdain for Buchanan and Johnson is so very strong. I can't. It would take a lot for me to put somebody else with them.
So I guess we'll talk about it for a couple minutes,
Okay.
probably. Watergate, the Watergate scandal. Do you know much about Watergate?
Yes, I know a fair amount of Watergate.
I know a decent amount of Watergate as well. To give you a quick cliff notes, and I guess Dan could probably fill in some important details.
If I can.
Which Richard Nixon had a problem with. It was the Democratic Party's office in D.C. or something got raided for documents and important information.
In an attempt to get dirt on it or sabotage
The campaign,
the
opposing
Democrat.
campaign party. And this was ended up getting tied back to Nixon in a direct thing. Nixon, then president, resigned before he could get impeached.
Kind of admitting yourself a little bit.
I believe he still.
He said up until that point, all that time, he said,
still-
I wasn't responsible for this.
Yeah, Nixon's still alive, right?
No, he's not. He's long dead.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
He's long dead.
Yeah, he remained innocent the entire time and all the way up until I guess he died. But doing the "fuck you, I quit, you can't fire me"
Kind of admits.
kind of sounds like you fucked up.
So as much as he can shake his jowls back and forth and say he's not a crook, I kind of think he's a crook.
So Nixon is most known for Watergate. And if you wonder why it's called Watergate, the office was on Watergate Street or something like that, or in the Watergate building.
That's my Nixon place.
So,
what do you think?
Whether or not we know much about Nixon, we do know Nixon, general public opinion is not very good, and thus he has entered the realm of D. Now we're going on to some presidents that I don't know, but apparently Dan knows.
So what do you know about this guy? Do you know his name?
We've already gone over this a couple times.
His name is Gerald Ford.
I know Gerald.
Okay, you know Gerald Ford.
I will know these presidents when you tell me their name, but I do not know these presidents' names
So Gerald Ford was,
by face.
if I'm not mistaken, he was a Republican as well, but he was nowhere near as. Well, I guess I can't make that determination because I don't know what exactly was happening in that time.
I believe we have also passed the ideological switch thing that we were talking about.
Yes,
earlier.
that happened around World War II.
So that has passed now. So now anyone who is in America that may be watching, which let me check chat. Let me check. Let me do stream check.
There's no chat.
49.
There was never a chat.
Oh, what are you talking about? People say hi sometimes. Oh, anyone in America that knows about American politics, this will be accurate to probably when you're seeing, unless for whatever reason within the next couple of years the parties switch again.
I don't suspect that's going to happen.
And the only thing that's probably going to happen is they get more extreme.
Yeah, probably.
But we will not talk about modern politics.
It's a tricky subject. That's why we cut out the last 4 presidents completely.
That's why we cut out Bush, Obama, Trump, and Mr. Current Biden.
If I had to start talking about literally any of those 4 individuals, I'd get very, very heated.
There are many things about the 4 most recent presidents that we decided to cut that can go either way and have been very polarizing for people. So we will not talk about it at all.
Correct. I'm not. I wanna. I'm not gonna. Your stream. Anyway,
we have. It was one of the rules we had established.
Yes.
And we are making an exception here because we are in DC and we thought it'd be apt.
Yeah.
To talk about presidents in DC.
But we only got 5 left. We're in the home stretch.
So we're almost done. And it's been like 2 hours.
Gerald Ford. I don't know much about him. I do know this one particular fact. He's the old, and this rings true for me. Like this is important to me personally. Gerald Ford is the only United States president to have ever been an Eagle Scout in the Boy Scouts of America. As an Eagle Scout myself, I resonate with that. All right? So, to that end, we know that at least prior to being a United States president, he had, before he was even of the age of 18, he had experience in leadership. Quality experience in leadership. I know because I've done it. It's hard thing to do. So if Gerald Ford could do it, then he's clearly a man who knows his way around a leadership role. Now, that being said, I don't know exactly how good his leadership abilities have served him in the presidency. I want to put him in the don't know enough, unfortunately.
Fair.
But
okay, I think I might.
The fact that he's an Eagle Scout is not enough, I think, to tier him.
We've lost our guys here. Hold on.
We did.
I don't. Okay, so I think I remember part of his name. Is this a Graham? No.
Okay. Never had a Graham president.
The last name? No.
No.
Oh, okay, I tried. I gave up.
This is Jimmy Carter.
Whatever.
Whatever. He's whatever. Jimmy Carter is the one that's still alive. He's the only. Okay. I mean, they're all Clinton's still alive, but the others are dead. Reagan's dead. Bush is dead.
When did Reagan die?
What?
When did Reagan die?
Reagan died a long time ago.
That doesn't help me.
Reagan died before we were born, I think.
Jeez. 30 years ago?
I think so. Maybe not. It's been a while. He died with he had Alzheimer's and stuff.
One of these other guys just
recently died.
Recently. Was it this year or last year?
I think it was last year.
Last year. We'll get there.
Yeah. So Jimmy Carter. He's another kind of one of those like made from nothing presidents. He's actually, you know what he was? Before he got into politics? He was a peanut farmer.
I was going to say movie actor, but I know that's not the right president. I know it's the next one.
Oh, is it? It's the next one. So Jimmy Carter actually, I know that he was, I don't know, like he isn't exactly a trailblazer, you know, like Lincoln or Roosevelt. You can't really hold every president up to those standards. It's not fair.
Yeah.
It's just not fair.
You have exceptional presidents, you have good presidents, you have presidents.
And presidents. And then you have the bad one.
The subpar and terrible.
Yeah. So I don't think that Carter was bad. In fact, I actually remember my father. He's old. He's very old. Ancient, in fact. I think he was around for Calvin Coolidge. I'm kidding. But
Prehistoric, he saw a T-Rex.
he did. He was one of his best friends. Anyway.
He
remembers Carter very well. And I remember him telling me offhand that Carter was like the only president, like when he was young, that he was happy he voted for or something. Like he claims from personal life experience that Carter did a good job, not a great job. Like I'm saying, like he's not a trailblazer, but he ain't William Henry Harrison dying in a month. You know,
Well,
he ain't.
Well, at least your dad is a voice of the American.
He's a
in
voice.
the American.
He's a voice in the American community, and he's old enough to know, like all these guys from like, Nixon, and maybe a couple older than that. He's been around for those. He's in his 70s, so he's seen a lot of these. He's voted for almost every one of these elections in the last 50 years.
And we're really getting to the part now where people start really not liking presidential choices.
It's getting kind of contemporary now. So yeah, I think Carter was like the last one that wasn't super polarizing. And if you did a good job, I'm okay putting him in like the B.
And I say,
But like maybe a low B, because Martin Van Buren's chops though.
but the chops.
The chops goes right underneath the chops, I think. So,
So-
we got three. You got Reagan.
Now I'll say we could probably have stopped the list here as
Yeah.
well, and have been a good spot because now I believe we've gotten to the point now where
It's difficult to not get political.
yeah, well, I think we've gotten to the point where these guys are recent. They've done significant things.
One of them is still alive.
One of them's still alive, and it's become. I think it's if the American people. It should be no surprise that I'm going to say that apparently at some point the candidates that we have gotten for the presidential elections have been dog shit. And
Steaming dog shit that's been melting on the side of the sidewalk for
people have been
so long it's
have
producing a
voiced
smell and etching itself into the sidewalk.
people have voiced their disdain for the choices that have been presented to the presidential candidates for as long as I can remember, for presidents being elected, which I remember my first election I actually remember is Obama's.
Did you vote for that one?
No, I wasn't able to vote.
No, yeah. My
But
first
I was
election was the re-election of Obama. It was the first one I got to vote in.
This most recent presidential election, it's the only election I voted in. I could have voted during the
2016.
2016 presidency, but I didn't register. I was still in college.
Okay.
And I just didn't.
You just didn't. All right.
I went to college out of state from where my mom was living, which is pretty much where my primary residence would have been, and I didn't feel like going through the trouble of registering in a state I wasn't going to be mostly living in.
Yeah. I've been voting since I've been legally of age too, and it's one of the few things that gives me a little bit of a sense of not authority, not really power. It's hard to describe.
So I believe it's around this point that we're getting to the point where people really start thinking that president's options aren't as great as people used to remember.
Garden hose, golf ball.
However, on a note similar to this, if you are an American citizen, register and vote. Please. It is important.
It is.
When they say every vote counts,
they really mean it. Okay.
For everything other than the presidential election, it pretty much counts.
Yes, please.
Your local statesmen and representatives are important that you elect someone that you
presidential
want.
Elections they're important.
And vote for it.
But be aware that the presidential election does not affect your. Depends on the president, obviously, but most of the time, your presidential election is not going to affect your day-to-day life nearly as much as your local elections. Pay attention to your mayors, pay attention to your state senate and representatives, and also pay attention to your governor. Because your governor, in your day-to-day life, is going to affect your day-to-day life much more than the president will.
I was say, I don't think it's a surprise, but we're both from Connecticut. I think we've mentioned this before.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been mentioned before.
And then people, I don't know much about our local politics, but I have heard they are not good.
What, our current candidates?
Some of our current people in
state office?
In state offices.
Which one?
I don't know. My family complains about most of them, but my family is also a different political belief than I am.
Oh, is that so?
But
we could talk about the gubernatorial stuff after.
Yeah, we can talk about that later, I guess. But yeah, I want to point out that we've gotten to a point now where these people are still super important to modern American systems. Because I believe, was it Reagan that made Social Security?
No, it was FDR.
It was FDR. I suck. Reagan did something important there.
Reagan tried to scale back.
That's what it was.
Social Security.
I know I had something to do with it. I was close. I won't have Social Security by the time I'm supposed to get it.
Well, not if these guys keep getting in office and try to scale back every little bit of social progress we've made in the last 60 years.
I do want to point out, I actually don't know much about Reagan, but he was pictured with a chimp for a movie set.
Yeah, he was.
So
economically, Reagan is probably one of our worst presidents we ever had.
I think I've actually heard things like there are people talking about things. We're feeling the repercussions of economic things from what Reagan has done.
Reagan was god awful. Like Nixon might have started the whole trickle down thing. Reagan popularized it, and he made it a thing that he's probably one of the most corporately corrupt people on this list. Like just straight up.
I do think I'm correct on this one. Reagan started the war on drugs.
Yes, which was
ongoing, continuous
has been a complete failure because all that the war on drugs has done is allow a black market cartel to distribute drugs that are laced with stuff that is harmful. And because that industry is not regulated by the government or really anything, it's become a laissez-faire black market economy.
So it has
it's costing people's lives and health.
The continuous, ongoing war on drugs, which isn't.
And it's also putting.
I guess it's still being added. It's not being added like it used to be.
And it's putting thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people in jail who have no business being in jail, who are non-violent, quote, drug offenders.
So yeah, that's kind of not been. I mean, it's important to keep people safe from drugs that kill them.
Yes, sure. But this is another reason why this is the dumbest fucking thing. If you were, I can't help it, dude.
We're getting into the point, Dan, because we're getting heated.
Okay. There's numerous reasons this is fucking stupid. First of all, it's putting people in jail that don't need to be in jail. Right.
Which is important.
They're non-violent drug offenders. And plus, you are missing out on an enormous opportunity. Not only if you federally regulated the drugs that are in the country, you could, upon the regulation, make them safer and legally available to people who want to use them recreationally, but you can also, if it's regulated by the government, tax it! And it'd be another way to get money from the taxpayer without having to do anything extra. And, while simultaneously, if you make it legal and you make it publicly available by the government, you get rid of the cartels. That's the only way to make a dent in the cartels. Will the cartels still exist? Maybe, for people who don't want to go through the government and don't want to support them and don't want to fucking pay taxes. But I guarantee you, the vast majority of the people who use drugs recreationally, these drugs that are keeping people in jail for no reason other than Reagan's stupid fucking policies,
I'll say for anyone who doesn't know,
will go through the legal channels to get their drugs because they're just doing it recreationally.
I believe the incarceration rate in America is significantly higher than any other country of the same.
We have the highest prison population per capita in the world by there's nothing close.
Yeah, the incarceration rate, according to similar countries that are like in Europe for how America stands in the world, it's It's a significant
And a
difference.
huge part of that is because of this failed drug war. If you release these people who are nonviolent drug offenders, guess what? You put more people who can work jobs, more people who could buff up the economy. All right? People would be happier because they have to see their loved ones again. Like, there's no benefit to the drug war.
It's crazy. It's kind of crazy. Where's Reagan going? Just put him somewhere. Let's move on.
I'm putting him in fucking D. I'm putting him next to Buchanan. God damn. HW.
All right, so immediately now we're getting. I know details because it has to do with the war about one thing that HW has done.
Go for it.
As for the rest of what HW has done, I don't really know. So I don't know if you want to talk about the politics or the war first.
Talk about the war first. We know
Okay.
more about that.
So, HW kind of started America's involvement in the war in the Middle East, which has been successful to varying degrees. According to my knowledge, Iraq or Afghanistan. I don't remember which one off the top of my head, and I'm not going to say it was either one because I do not want to be putting that on either country if it wasn't the one.
I think it was Afghanistan first.
I think it was Afghanistan. I think it was also
I think it became Iraq later, but I think it was Afghanistan first.
Invaded Kuwait, really small country, really oil-populated country.
Oh no! Like, you saying it had anything to do with oil? Sure.
No.
There's no way.
Invaded Kuwait and took over a lot of the oil fields that were near the border. And in retaliation to slap on the wrist for, you can't invade countries in this day and age anymore. And probably because gas prices probably went up a lot. It was Operation Desert Storm. I think Desert Storm, Desert Strike, and then turned into Desert Shield. Once I think Desert Shield was Bush Jr. More. We won't really talk about that. But Desert Storm was a pretty much show off of modern technology to what war has become since the Cold War era. As arms technology has increased significantly since the Cold War and between that and the 2000s.
They weren't wasting shells. They had plenty of time to develop what they were going to do later.
The arms manufacturing and design has changed significantly after World War II, and again after the Cold War. This brought about airstrikes for the first times and stuff for. From jets and drones and all the cool shit that war brings that is totally not necessary, destroys pretty much everything with a 2-week aerial raid into an all-out reinvasion, I guess, of Kuwait to free them from Afghanistan. And from my knowledge, because I had read a book about someone, I believe it was called American Sniper by Jack McLaughlin.
Yeah, I heard of that one.
So it's kind of my only source, but someone was there, and I think I did research. More people have actually surrendered on the Afghanistan side during that war than was anticipated. They were running out of supplies to keep holding surrendered troops. That even soldiers didn't know why they were invading Kuwait, because these are, from what I was told and read, these is part of the war where they are very much they're the same group of people. They're the same heritage. They're same, they have a very strong brotherhood and camaraderie between each other. They don't know why they did this, but it's the way the world works. And this has led to an ever-growing tension in the Middle East, which is still a problem.
Still very much a problem.
Still very much a problem.
We have presidents that shall not be tiered.
Thank
for continuing that.
That had more decisions to make upon that. I do believe, though, that Desert Storm and the following wars that caused from this were the first time that war was being televised live on television across the country, which
It wouldn't surprise me.
really is the first time that I don't know if it's something that happened along across the world or if it was just a thing that really started in America. As drones became more popular and we were able to fly planes around that didn't require people, you attach a video camera to it and you can see what's happening live. This gives the American people the actual perception of what war is, which has become very important to showing that war is not a glory thing. It's not an idolized thing. This is something that is very deadly. It's very dreary and dreadful. It's gruesome. It's gloomy. It's destructive. It's terrible. And up until this point, if you look back at American history, except for possibly World War II at this point, war in history is looked upon with the glory and the pride.
Yeah, there's rose-colored glasses for it, for sure.
This is something that became it's actually, for me, has become very important that people know that war is not something that should be happening. This is a very bad thing in the world. And unfortunately, I believe it's actually because of stuff like that there's a delay on live television. So you don't see things that you shouldn't about people dying on live television.
Well, what do we think about HW in terms of placement?
From my knowledge,
that's a phrase that's coming up a lot lately.
Yes, from my knowledge, the attacks that happened in the Middle East during that time were not an invasive thing into another country, which would be followed up by a later president shall not be tiered. And to me, and I could be wrong, and I'd be perfectly willing with for people to be more informative to me about information from this that could sway my opinion. Not nearly as bad as some other people who have done similar things in a similar region.
Here's what I know. His presidency is kind of like a fart.
And George H.W. Bush was the president we were talking about, has died recently. It's been last year or whatever.
I think I'm going to put him up here. What do you think?
C's.
C. Taft? McKinley? Oh, no, McKinley dying, though. Ooh.
I don't particularly know what H.W. has actually done on a political scale.
Well, here's what I know about H.W., right? And this is, I think, kind of why I'm setting him here. He's a one-termer. If the American people liked him enough, they'd have voted him in again.
Was he the no? Who was the one running against Al Gore?
That was George W. the first time. That was the election of 2000.
Okay. Bush Jr.
Bush Jr. Well, it's not really a junior.
Yeah.
It's like HW and then W.
Well, it's Bush Sr. and Bush.
Yeah, Bush Sr. and Bush. Sure.
So, okay, I just wanted to make sure. I thought it was a Bush.
Okay, so we got one left.
One left. Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
And yet again, we have reached a president that, I actually don't know a lot about what Bill Clinton has done.
So I know I know a fair amount about Clinton.
All right, we'll start with what you know instead of what everyone probably knows.
I'm going to skip the Monica Lewinsky stuff for now.
I guess we can just address real quick. He had an affair thing or whatever. Didn't look good.
No.
Very bad perception. I don't really know much about it either, actually. I don't know much about Mr. Clinton.
Okay, so
I know more about his wife because of recent politics and elections. I have more knowledge of her than I do of him.
So Bill's actually very interesting. Bill, I like him and I hate him for different reasons. The reason that I do not like him is because he has started this wave, this is a super difficult topic to talk about without getting super. I'm just gonna have to get political with this. He got elected pretty much because at the time, the Republican Party had essentially abandoned the moderate wing of the country. Now, I hesitate to call it a wing because it's not really. There's really left wing and right wing, and then there's centrists. They had abandoned the centrists, which makes up a surprisingly large chunk of the country. And up to several presidents until this point, they were kind of lost. So, and also at the time, I guess I don't know how the perception, I wasn't there, but I guess there was a perception within the Democratic Party that the Democrats were pulling too far to the left for the desires of the moderate chunk of the country. So Bill Clinton postured himself as a moderate Democrat. He would say things like, I'm not like all those crazy people on the left, but I'm also not like these crazy people on the right. I'm just like you. That was kind of his thing. Like he said, he poised himself as a centrist Democrat. And politically, he kind of was. But the reason that I hate that is because that did well for him, and Clinton was a decent president. Not great, but decent. But I can say this for Clinton. He came really, really close to eliminating the federal budget deficit. He was very smart about how he managed money. He sat down with economists and all this to come up with a proper economic plan that balanced the budget. And he was really close to eliminating it completely and actually left the office with a budget surplus, which is something that no president since then has done. In fact, we just keep digging ourselves a bigger hole.
It just keeps going down further and
yes.
further.
So economically, Clinton was actually very smart and good for the country. I dislike that he ran and was successful as a, quote, centrist Democrat, because the Democrats since then have gotten it in their heads that that's just going to work every time. And it doesn't. Because that's not the world we live in anymore. We don't live 20 years ago anymore.
Say that the world is a rapidly changing place at this point.
Yes. So it worked for Clinton, and good for him, because it got him in the seat, and he did good while he was in it. But what the modern Democrats are missing is, okay, but then what? You know what I mean? If it worked and they got into the presidency, which it hasn't worked lately, and then what? Clinton had things he wanted to do, and Clinton did some of those things. And he left with a good, I don't want to say good taste in his mouth, because that's distasteful for the other situation. But
taste jokes.
But, you know, I don't usually like to get involved with like the personal lives of these presidents and like use that as justification to jump around to different places. I'm trying to keep it like strictly what they did, what their policy was like, you know, that kind of thing. Clinton's policy was good. Clinton's actions in the presidency as a politician were good. Was he a good person outside of it? Probably not.
Apparently not.
Apparently not.
According to things.
Yes. This might be controversial, but
is summing up the affair thing like, oh, he had an affair in
I actually
the
put
White
Clinton
House.
Up here.
I think sums it up. I'd say that with the affair thing, like he had an affair in the White House.
Yeah,
very bad luck.
I think he did.
But I mean, people do that.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like he did it. Okay, so what? Did it affect his presidency? No, it was a scandal.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
It didn't affect what he did as president.
But it did affect his presidency.
It affected his reputation, but that's not really the things he does as president. Okay, he did it while he was president. It didn't affect he didn't write a bill that was like, and now Monica Lewinsky is gonna... No, he didn't do anything like that. Prostitution's legal. No, he didn't do anything like that. It didn't let it govern his decision making. It happened, it was a scandal, alright, let's move on. That's my perception of it anyway. It's not like, I don't know, take your pick on a person. Japanese internment. That was not a personal decision.
No.
That was a decision he made with an executive order pen, all right? That was explicitly what FDR did as a president. because he was a president. Clinton didn't have an affair because he was the president.
Come on!
You know what I mean. But do you have an objection to me putting him there? Because I can honestly understand an argument if you wanted to put him in B, but I don't think he belongs any lower than B.
Scroll up a little bit. Let's see, let me see the tops of this a little
It's
bit.
hard at this point because I don't have a scroll wheel.
Yeah. So you can cut out that bottom tier. We don't need to worry about looking at them anymore.
Yeah, right. But this is as is.
Who's the guy on top of B again?
That's John Adams,
Okay.
second president.
That's the dual guy.
Yeah. I wasn't kind of thinking
Is he better than dual guy?
I was thinking about putting him in John Adams in A.
Slide Adams at the bottom of A. I guess Clinton can stay there, but slide him to the bottom of A. Screw it. A lot of people here. I'm gonna have a hard time remembering half these people anymore.
Sorry, Garfield. But Monroe Doctrine was a little bit more important.
The chops. The chops.
Actually, Millard, you're going down. Okay, fine. Chops drop.
Chops drops. You're dropping the chops? Man, I was gonna make a joke about raising them.
If you want to make an argument to me that the chops are better than Truman, I'll hear it. But
No,
I don't think he goes
the
over
chops.
Lyndon. It's just chops. Okay.
I was going to the chops, but Reagan's really down there. Below Nixon. Reagan below Nixon.
Yeah.
Is that Andrew Jackson above him?
It's Andrew Jackson. Yep.
See, we're gonna have to actually research some of these people, or get a list.
This one is fluid, as far as I'm concerned. This is not as concrete
As
or
our other
final as some of our other lists, like the gym leaders and the champions, right? This
or
one,
the Star Wars movies.
this one we can revisit in the future.
So
And make adjustments. We can
we can
put
try
some
to-
of these people actually in the list.
Say we can try to get a list of things that every president has done, just to
And get some
things.
bullet points.
Yeah.
Some highs and some lows, if they have lows. Lincoln doesn't have very many lows.
Yeah, I would say for some of these presidents, like Lincoln, if you happen to be traveling or whatever, and you are in Washington D.C. or you plan on going somewhere, I guess it's more relevant to Americans than it is people outside of America.
Well, we saw a lot of people today that were speaking different languages.
Well, I mean, there's a lot.
There's
a lot of
definitely people
It's
from
definitely
around the world here.
It's definitely a tourist attraction for sure. The monuments and the memorials set
They are
around DC are just beautiful. They're just beautiful pieces of architecture and really like everything. Like
Yeah.
What these things stand for are important. But the buildings are just fucking beautiful. They're so good looking. And they're massive.
Most
They're,
of them, yeah.
they're however big you think they are. They're big. They're probably bigger. I would say. So if you have time to go to DC, probably spend more than 2 days. Probably make it like 3 or 4,
Hey, man.
if time permits.
I could have done more, but I'd have to ask you guys to get more time off.
Could have done yesterday, but Kyle unfortunately had some stuff that came up, and he was not able to attend
He was
with us.
supposed to be here with us. He was supposed to be 3 Amigops.
Yeah, we were going to have this, and this would probably have gotten a little more political, but
Yeah, because he's on the other end of me.
we've toned it down. We kept it not as so bad.
I got heated during the Reagan section, but that I'm sorry about that.
But yeah, unfortunately, Kyle couldn't be here. Hopefully, we hopefully can take Kyle down here
At some point.
another time.
Won't be soon. No. I need to recoup funds from this trip.
Yeah, tolls are expensive. Sure are.
Well then,
This is our list.
that concludes this for now.
Yes, that's our list. I guess I'll post this on Twitter because I did that with the other ones.
Yeah, all right.
So check my Twitter out probably tomorrow. We're going to have to save it.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Probably tomorrow I'll post it because we're going to probably immediately go to sleep.
Yep. Lots more to see when we wake up.
Yeah, a lot of walking to do, and then a lot of driving.
Oh, lots of driving. Probably won't be as much driving. Well, it'll be the same amount of driving, but we could probably get through it faster. There'll be less traffic, I think.
Depends on how we do it. Depends if we avoid the toll roads and take the scenic route.
That's up to you.
We shall see what time permits.
All right, so
So-
that is the stream. You
Yeah, so
keep your
that's-
streak.
That is all we have for today. Just something shortish, 2.5 hours than normal, but I will be back next Friday
With games.
with games, probably with Kyle and Patrick.
Yep.
I have my own room. I've moved. I have my own house now, and I have an entire room dedicated to my computer, and it looks good. So I'm excited to show it off
Can confirm.
a little bit. We just need to put some more lights up, and that's all. So I will be back next week with something, probably.
Yep. Alrighty.
Take it easy, people.